Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Tuesday. It is March the 17th, and it is St. Patrick's Day. So happy St. Patrick's Day to those of you who do St. Patrick's Day things. I remember when I was a kid, you used to get pinched if you weren't wearing green, and then everyone had to make up this thing that like, oh, there's some green on my shoe because I've got like a grass stain, and I was playing soccer yesterday because I forgot that it was St. Patrick's Day, and my mom didn't tell me, so now I don't want to get pinched by a bunch of weirdos that I go to school with. I'm not wearing any green. I don't think any of my kids are either. I don't even think anybody knows that that's a thing. I guess that's what happens when you homeschool. Kind of a different little world, isn't it? You forget some of the strange things that go on in the kid world. Also, there's not a lot of bullying that goes on in my household when it comes to like looks or dress. I've got a son who constantly is putting on not only tracksuits, but he also covers himself in masking tape to tie down his clothes so he can move faster through the world, which is really funny and quirky, and I don't know where it came from. And I have this funny little, juxtaposition of that, and then watching some of the stuff that goes on online, where you see people talking about how they don't want to be called obese. They want to be called fat-bodied. I saw this whole clip. Jillian Michaels, I think is her name, and she's like going this podcast and she's talking to people that are body positives, and they're trying to talk about how they don't want to be called obese because that's offensive. They don't want to be called overweight. They want to be called fat-bodied, which if I was a kid and I ran up and called you a fat body, like that is way more offensive than being called obese, which is a medical term. Anyway, that's my musings on the sort of weirdness of the morning, I guess. We got a bunch of news we're going to cover. Susie Wiles, I'm going to predict she's probably out in a little bit. We've got an interesting sort of spike in anti-Catholic bias that's been kind of kicking up, and it makes sense to talk about it on St. Patrick's Day. The war in Iran, we've won. Donald Trump has announced it multiple times that we've won, but we're not done there. We're going to stick around, even though we've been killing people left and right, and there are new reports of people in the Iranian regime that have been taken out this time again, but it's too soon for us to leave. We haven't spent all the money that we planned on doing. Let's see, right-wing ecosystem and the meltdown that goes on the political right, the people that are in the podcast sphere, the big names that are fighting and so on. There's kind of an interesting little meta-analysis. We can see the crowning example of the most exciting Fox News, I don't know what you call this, take on something that is hard to sell to a base. If you can't sell it in any other way, you might as well go towards religion. I have criticized the political left for being interested in being part of a secular religion. Maybe one of the weirder things is watching people on the political right take on the language of religion when it comes to that. And Sean Hannity is the example that we're going to play for today. A couple things about the FBI that are going on. We have the FBI director making claims about how open and transparent they are. I'm going to show you that they're not. I have an active lawsuit. We just got an update on it yesterday, and I had some journalists reach out and say, thanks for what you're doing, fighting on this thing, because, the FBI is not transparent. Our government is not transparent. In fact, our government's job is to lie to us, and so our question is how do we fix that? I don't know that you can. So we're going to go into all those things and more, and if those things kind of get you a little bit down in the dumps, make you worry but what the future looks like, you can go to preparelikekyle.com, and at least you can do the one thing, make sure you're not going to be starving as things collapse around you. It's a possibility that it does collapse. I think we all sort of think that. The question is how, when, where, and will it be regional or will it be national? One thing I want to make sure I do is have food in my pantry. I want to make sure that my kids can eat. Major disruptions happened. You can't go to the store. Could be a bad weather day like they had up in Wisconsin, talking to my buddy Garrett. Could be that it's happening because the supply lines have shut down and gasoline or diesel is too expensive. If you got anything less than a month of emergency food in your emergency storage, then you want to check out our friends over at My Patriot Supply. The website is preparelikekyle.com. You can see it on the screen. You can also scan the QR code if you're watching on a television. Right now, go to preparelikekyle.com. You'll get 4 weeks of the best-selling emergency food kit. It's a 4-week emergency food kit. It's going to give you an additional 1 week free in an ammo can for storage. It's a long-term storable product you can keep for up to 25 years. You get 2,000 calories a day. They're real meals made with real ingredients with no artificial flavors, colors, shelf life. It's measured in decades. Store the food. You never know when the emergencies might come your way. Why not get them from the most trusted folks in the business and get a free week of food while you're at it too? So that's like a 25% bonus, I think. Yeah. There you go. Preparelikekyle.com. Get your free week of food. There's a link in the show description as usual. And at the bottom of our show notes every single time, if you heard a sponsor and you wanted to know who they were, you can always go and click on that link. It will take you to all of our sponsors for the month and also the affiliates that work with us. And you can find them at any time. And that's over at kyleseraphin.com, which is our locals page. But you don't even need to be a member to be able to see that post, which is linked below. All right, let's get into today's program starting right now. You know, speaking of kids, I don't know if I got it from my father, if I got it probably from my dad, but like I tend to sing things that are weird and it makes my kids laugh. I just sing things at them when they're doing weird things. I'll sing it in a song. I know my dad used to do this to me when I was a kid. It's funny, the stuff that kind of sticks with you. All right, we're going to get into a couple of just like news stories right off the bat. And one of the things that I saw today, which I think is worth mentioning, we've covered it before on this program, the K-shaped economy. When inflation goes up and you see a deviation, one goes up and one goes down, the experience of people who have less than a certain amount of money, that have less than a certain amount of net worth, have less than a certain amount of assets and income and so on, it goes downward. And so their buying power goes down and their ability to do anything. But people who have significant savings and people who have a lot of investment and that make quite a bit of money so that they can put things away, people that are better off economically, their experience goes upward. And so you can have people saying, we're in the greatest economy that's ever happened right now, at the exact same time as other people are like, I think that I'm going to lose my home and I think I'm going to end up losing my car and I can't afford to fill my gas tank and groceries and so on and so forth. And there's almost nothing that is more revealing of that than the experience of travel. Travel might be one of the things, if you fly first class, if you fly coach, business, whatever, like everybody, versus if you fly private, let's say, I don't know, like a government employee, or maybe you're an ultra high net worth individual. You can always buy your way out of travel. You can move more quickly, right? You can have a better experience. Here's what I'm talking about. And hear me out on this, because I think that simultaneously, this is part of the reason why we're not going to see a collapse happen the way that people think. Because as long as Costco is open, as long as Uber Eats exists, as long as people can pick up the phone or pick up an app and get a special experience, then that degree of comfort that is being delivered, the stuff that people saw when they should have been rioting because of the COVID lockdowns, but they were able to stay home and delivery happened and they just didn't feel that there was an impact. I feel like stories like this kind of take us there. So hear me out on this. This is part of the K-shaped economy. Story from ABC News. I was looking for stuff that wasn't related to the Iran war, that wasn't related to like failures in government and whatever else, which we cover a lot of. Amazon offers 1 and 3 hour deliveries for US customers that are willing to pay extra. And the key part there is that last little bit. If you're willing to pay for it, you can have a significant amount of convenience. I never understood the idea of paying someone to bring you a burrito for a lot more money than what a burrito costs. Like, I also didn't like the idea of people handling my food any more than necessary. But this is one of those things where, as you look at the story, you go, oh, okay, yes, if you're willing to pay for it, you can have a faster, more convenient experience. Amazon said it's going to start offering these deliveries for selected products for an additional fee. Said on Tuesday that they're going to do this. There are selected products, including pantry staples, clothing, over-the-counter medication, cleaning supplies, and electronics. Kind of a weird little mix of things in the basket of products they're offering. And remember, Amazon is they've got a deal with Whole Foods. I believe they own Whole Foods, so you can get Whole Foods foods, which is, that is also premium pricing. If you guys have never been to a Whole Foods, I won't say you're missing out, but there's an experience. And living in the Austin area, where I used to actually go to the original Whole Foods, it was like, my buddy called it the Mecca. He had come in from some other places. He used to live in New York, and he would come into the Austin area and he would be like, can we go to the Mecca? Because he would always find pretty women in yoga pants. And also they have like unlimited produce, which is beautifully arranged. And, you could spend a bunch of money, but you could get like a coconut cracked open right there for you. And you could drink right out of a fresh coconut or whatever. Anyway, the e-commerce colossus said that customers in more than 2,000 cities, towns, and urban areas can now have orders with speedy shipments, inventory of over 90,000 items delivered in 3 hours or less. The charge is $5, which is not that much money. And it's $15 if you're a non-member. These are $4.99 and $14.99. If you're an Amazon Prime member, then you get it for $5. You can have something rushed to you, which is probably the same price as gas if you're going to burn a gallon of fuel at this point, especially in my truck. 1-hour delivery slots are available in hundreds of places: Los Angeles, Chicago, Washington, smaller cities like Des Moines, Iowa, Boise, Idaho. Prime members will get charged $10 for the service if you want it in the 1 hour. So for 3 hours, you get it in 5. If you want it in a third of the time, it's going to cost you 10 if you're an Amazon Prime member. It's actually a better deal for the non-members. It goes from 15 to 20. Seattle-based company said they're going to start testing this express service. They started it late last year and they're expanding it. We saw an opportunity. Going to use our operational experience and the network delivery capabilities to make our customers' lives a little more easy. And this is all what it's about: the convenience and the cost, right? And I'm going to add that to the discussion about private air travel, which is the same kind of conversation. Are you able to pay and afford for a different experience than the normal people? And this is what it looks like. It's a story from CNN. It was one of their front page stories. And it says that flyers are facing hours-long lines and nasty, nasty delays as TSA agents are starting to quit. It's the first time they've gone without a full pay. They had their first weekend after not receiving a paycheck. Now, as a former federal employee, I know what it's like to not receive a paycheck. I kind of didn't really even know it when it happened. We missed a check, I remember, in 2018. Was that the end of 2018, I think, going into 2019? And my theory is that, we made enough money. Why on the earth would like missing one paycheck that we eventually were made whole on? Well, why would you have to leave your job over that? That seems kind of silly. And yet, you look at the TSA agents, on average, they make about $26 an hour, which is not a poverty wage in many places, but it'd be tough to support a family in certain areas. Certainly like the area I live, it's pretty expensive. And air travel is one of those other differentiators, right? Air travel, which now it's higher because why? We've shut down the Homeland Security. It's the thing that most of us haven't experienced. The efficiency and the inefficiency. The efficiency of business being able to deliver you a product in 3 hours for $5. The inefficiency of being able to do TSA stuff. It's interesting that the picture that they chose for CNN, which is what you're seeing here on the screen, is a very heavy-set black woman. She looks like she's probably, 75 pounds overweight minimum. There's a lot of folks that are in the TSA range that are just standing there. They don't necessarily have qualifications to be protective. They're not investigators. They're just placeholders that are doing the same thing that you would do at a checkout line in a grocery store, except they do it slower and with a crappier attitude oftentimes. Having done spot checks on this thing, having spent a significant amount of time on the back end of TSA in various different airports when I was working for the Bureau, I'd sit there and watch these people, and they're not prosecuting a mission of protecting the American flying public. They're not thinking about that every day. They're just punching a clock. Our chat is already telling me I'm not allowed to call her chubby. I don't even know what I said. She's supposed to be referred to as fat-bodied. You guys are sick. Is that really the thing? How did we end up in a world in 2026 where the term fat-bodied is preferable to a medical term like obesity or being overweight? It's so silly. Yeah, it's as silly as having a chubby lady in her late 40s massage your thigh to try to figure out whether or not you're carrying a gum wrapper, which is what's in my pocket when I don't find it. Or there's an extra quarter that was like down a change pocket and they want to grope and squeeze your jeans together. You're going like, guys, we've seen what the red cell looks like. I don't know if you guys know this, but they've red celled a lot of these things. Red cell is where you take like an adversarial group that works for you and you send them in against your own security details to find out if you can smuggle in weapons or explosives or contraband of any kind. And they do it in prisons and they do it in software testing and they do it at the TSA. And they were doing it at the TSA to the point where it failed so many times they stopped publishing it. Like they were getting 95% of the weapon systems and weapons components through, explosives components through. These are all like dummy bombs and stuff like that. To the point where, little funny aside, I went down to the Texas surplus store. I don't know if you guys have this in your state, but in the state of Texas, if you have something confiscated in the airport because, I don't know, you brought a freaking pocket knife that is now considered a deadly weapon after 9/11, even though there's no examples of that being functional, and I don't think it would work with a hardened cockpit door, whatever. If you happen to bring like your Leatherman with you or like a Swiss Army knife or something that's on your keychain or some sort of scissors that are longer than the applied scissors, the appropriate scissors, they'll get confiscated. And then in Texas, they all get aggregated at this store called the Texas State Surplus Store. And it's down near the airport where I live. It's 45 minutes away from here or so. And you can roll in there. And they have bins and bins and bins of knives. It's like a 16-year-old boy's fantasy store because they're all like these used Chinese throwaway knives and stuff. And then there's the cosmetics and all the pharmaceutical stuff. They throw all that crap away. But like anything else that gets lost in an airport or that the state is no longer using, so there's like chalkboards and furniture from the 70s. It's an interesting experience to kind of see like what your money has paid for, and then they try to remonetize it. It's kind of great. There's commercial cooking equipment there. The other day I went down there, they had a lot of night vision that was abused by the state SWAT teams and stuff like that. But you go in and you find like all these little items that they've taken away. And you're just thinking like, is this really it? This is what it's all about? Like we're just confiscating and selling off other people's Leathermans and pocket tools or screwdriver that was too long. It's bizarre to me. I'm going to read this story real quickly. 1 month into a partial government shutdown. Yes, I'll just remind you again that we have that. Hundreds of TSA or Transportation Security Administration workers are going without full pay, and they've quit. Others have taken unscheduled time off, prompting more travel headaches as the winter storm slammed the Midwest and spring breakers are trying to fly and travel. I guess that's why it's so expensive right now. At Times Monday, wait times reported at the Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta International Airport and the Houston Hobby. Is it Hobby? No, it's George Bush International, which is the Houston airport, stretched up to nearly 2 hours long. Oh my God. Are these the lines for TSA? That's crazy, said a lady that they talked to. It's like some random lady. More than 300 TSA agents have quit, says the Department of Homeland Security in a post on Friday. And during the weekend, they missed their first full paycheck since the partial shutdown, which began in mid-February. So we're now about a month into it. After funding for DHS, which oversees TSA, has lapsed in between. Again, this is part of the federal cosplay theater. They're holding up funding for this thing. And rather than take the opportunity to see like, hey, what could we cut back? Like, are these even effective? Are we even doing anything of value with TSA? Do they miss every single thing that comes through when they do it? So they're just in the way. It's just the illusion, the security theater. But like so many things in our government, we're into theater, it sounds like. We're into theater for hearings. We're into theater for talking about whether or not we can have voter ID. We're into theater for all kinds of other stuff. There's a letter from the major airlines. We talked about it the other day. The CEOs of these airlines said that these people should be paid. They should be paid during the shutdown. They should be getting back pay. It's difficult, if not impossible, to put food or gas in the car or pay rent when you're not getting paid. Here's the funny thing. The conservative answer to this would be, let business pay for it. Stop having the federal government do local security at your local airport, which is not owned by the federal government and operates under this sort of weird hybrid of federal and state and local laws. Wouldn't it make more sense? It's like, here's what the cost is. Instead, what they have is this bloated bureaucracy with these blue uniforms that don't do a good job. They cost us way more money than they would otherwise cost for private security or anything else. And you never see a single conservative answer to it. You never see anybody from the right side of the aisle go, okay, well, TSA has been a monumental failure when it comes to customer experience, which is what we're talking about. The fact that it has to be funded on a government paycheck, the fact that we can go without them, it's going to add these huge lines. They are not incentivized for speed. They're not incentivized for functionality. They're not incentivized for anything except spending a bunch of money on government contracts. I remember standing in the line the last time I flew, and this lady was like, I don't even know why we do this. And I go, yes, you do. It's right in front of you. The reason why we are here is right in freaking front of you. And I pointed out the scanner machine. You guys have all gone through these machines, or maybe you get the massage touchdown, but you've seen the machine. And on it is a big sign that says Leidos, Leidos, Leidos. And it's a body scanner. And then so are the machines that are going and scanning your luggage and all the crap in there. And it's all about, can we get multi-million-dollar machines for hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts to put these machines that essentially have to be monitored by a human being, and the human being phones it in half the time. And then the alternative is that you don't do any of this stuff and you just drive and you pay more for gas right now because the gas prices are all up. And I'm in the middle of deciding this right now. I got a buddy who is looking to come down to Dallas. We have to meet up with the DOJ to have this conversation. It's 12 hours of 2-stop flying for $1,000 from the upper Midwest to get to Dallas, Texas. 12 hours, you can drive it in something like 16. And by the time you do the 2-hour line at TSA and you have to wait and the boarding and all the other stuff, and then you have to get out of the airport, then you got to do all your things, you might as well drive the damn thing. And so anyway, like this is a great opportunity for Republicans to actually look at efficiencies and see like, hey, what's working? What's not? Oh, this doesn't work. I see the same sort of theatrical garbage talking about the SAVE Act, which there was a discussion about in the Senate yesterday. So we're going to play this real quickly. First, again, the historic popularity of the idea that you should show an ID, which you have to show to do anything in America. You want to write a check, you have to show an ID, right? You want to buy cigarettes, you got to show an ID. You want to go and fly on an airplane, you got to show an ID over 16 years old. Everywhere you go, there's a requirement for an ID, and everybody has figured out how to do it. Nobody is out there complaining like, oh, married women are unable to get photo IDs from, like a driver's license. They're unable to travel. Married ladies can't travel. I see married ladies flying with and without husbands all the time. My wife is a married lady. She changed her name from her maiden name to my name. Oh, how did she do that? How could she figure it out? Oh, because she's a woman and she's smart enough to figure out how to get a freaking ID. It's the same sort of claim that black people couldn't do it. But anyway, that's the discussion. And nobody actually buys the argument in the real population. And so this is funny because, again, it's theatrical. Here's the CNN clip from yesterday. And then I'm going to show you a little bit of discussion between Mike Lee and Dick Durbin having this like, we have to take different sides of this issue. And we're both not going to talk about reality because we just can't do anything in this the Senate. If we did, then we'd be doing something. God forbid, quote unquote, base Mike Lee actually just go out there and say, this needs to be done. Your constituents say it. We're going to run ads in your area showing that you don't actually comply with the will of the American people. Here's the will of the American people by the numbers.
Take a look here. Favorite photo ID to vote. 85% of white people favor it. 82% of Latino. 76% of black Americans favor it. So the bottom line is this. Voter ID is not controversial in this country. A photo ID to vote is not controversial in this country. It is not controversial by party, and it is not controversial by race. The vast majority of Americans agree with Nicki Minaj that, in fact, you should have a photo ID to be able.
I have no idea why anyone thinks that it's about whether you agree with Nicki Minaj. That's pretty weird. Also, why is there a racial disparity? Why is it 86, 82 for Latinos and 76 for blacks? What does that even mean? What a strange breakdown. Like, in any case, here's the discussion. You guys tell me, are we about to see the SAVE Act, the Save America Act pop up? Is that going to happen? Are we going to save the American elections? I would say that the previous performance may be an indicator of the future. But you guys tell me after watching this little debate.
We took great pains to go out of our way to make sure that no American would be left in the dark.
Well,
this will not cost them a dime. And no one will be excluded if they can't find their documentation.
All of us should be aware of the fact of what is required by this act when it comes to registering to vote. You have to present identification, correct? But your driver's license, which most people use in the course of business every single day, is not acceptable. What is acceptable is a passport. 50% of Americans do not have a passport. Those who want to obtain it so they can vote will pay $186 and wait 3 or 4 weeks for that to happen. Secondly, you can use a birth certificate, but any person who has changed their name as a result of a marriage or a hyphenated relationship has to find not only their birth certificate, but some correction of it to prove that they're eligible to register to vote.
I'm happy to report to my dear friend and colleague, Senator Durbin from Illinois, you're in luck. We've taken care of that. When you read the bill, what you'll discover is that we've made special accommodation for those who don't have documentation, for those who can't find their birth certificate, maybe their house burned down, maybe their dog ate it, whatever it is. When all else fails, if you don't have documentation establishing the information on your birth certificate or what would be in a passport or otherwise, the bill contains a provision requiring each state to allow an alternative mechanism by which someone can, by attestation, issue a sworn statement establishing the critical facts underlying their citizenship, it then puts the onus on the state to follow up on that and to determine the authenticity of it. States have access to their own records. States have reciprocity with other states and are able to achieve verification of that. So we've taken care of that problem, and so I'm sure you'll be elated to hear that, and we look forward to having your affirmative vote when we vote on the Save America Act. We took great pains to go out of our way to make sure that no American would be left in the dark.
Well,
this will not cost them a dime, and no one will be excluded if they can't find their documentation.
Well, that sounds super reasonable. You have to come in and you have to make a signed sworn statement under penalty of law, I'm sure, and then you get to say this thing, and you hear the very passionate disagreement by Dick Durbin, who sounds like he's almost not even sure if he wants to be there right now. That's probably why he's not going to run for re-election. It's just, it's exhausting to be. These guys are exhausted by sitting. This is another reason why maybe we shouldn't have people who are over a certain age. Doesn't matter what party. When I hear these people and they're unable to string a sentence together in any articulate means, it's like, hey, maybe you should be out on a golf course somewhere, whispering in Lindsey Graham's ear and hanging out, hitting a ball, instead of doing that. By the way, the reason it has to be opposed by the Democrats is because it was on Trump's 20 core promises, which I keep bringing up to you. Here they are. This is the end of the list, which we don't cover all the time. But number 19 on the 20 core promises to make America great again was secure our elections, ensure same-day voting. They hate that. Voter identification, paper ballots, and proof of citizenship. So one party, and this is the funniest thing, there's a divide in this country three ways, I think, at this exact moment. One part of the group says, Donald Trump, no matter what he says, he's my guy, and I don't care if he says the craziest thing ever, I'm behind him. And I don't know who those people are, but I don't want to hang out with them. Then there's people who are like, Donald Trump, when he said 20 great promises to make America great again, I was in on that. I'm a conservative person. It's not conservative enough, but it's a start. And I'm a person who lives in reality, and I understand that would be okay. And then there's the third group of people, and they're like, whatever Donald Trump says is terrible, so we've got to do the opposite. We've literally got a country that is divided by one man, and he's doing his best to make it worse, I think. That's what I'm seeing. And I'm going to give you some examples of that, which is why you get people saying really awful things when news comes out that is either pro or against, or could be pro or against Donald Trump. And then people have this outsized emotional reaction instead of being a regular human reaction. And I'm going to give you the story specifically. This one should be like, that's really sad. The answer should be, that's terrible. I'm really sorry to hear that. I wish her well. Trump announces that Susie Wiles will undergo cancer treatment for early stage breast cancer while serving as the chief of staff. He put out this completely illogical tweet that said he's going to be spending virtually 100% of her time at the White House because she's been diagnosed with early stage breast cancer. Now, a normal person would go, it's really sad that you have breast cancer. This is an unelected position, and anybody could step in and do a good job there. There are any number of hundreds of people that would be competent chiefs of staff for the White House. So it'd be great for you to go and take care of yourself, worry about your health, be around for your grandchildren, be around for anybody in your life that wants you. And thank you for your service to America. We didn't love it, but thanks for being there. And God be with you as you go and work on your healing. That'd be great. That would be a normal thing. Instead, what you see is people, I posted this thing and I was like, is she going to leave a graceful exit shortly from the White House? Which is what my expectation is. You announce a cancer, it means that you get to leave. And so there were like three things. There were people who were like, yeah, Susie Wiles is going to stick around. She should ride this train off the edge. It's like, okay, that's one weird thing. And then you see other people and they're like, she can't die soon enough. And like, that's pretty awful. You're pretty awful. And then other people say similar things, but they say it from another thing because anything related to Trump equals bad. How about this is a woman who is an advanced age, who has some comorbidities based on just looking at her, since we talked about him earlier. Would she be considered a fat-bodied person or an obese person or an overweight person? You got to work on that stuff, it turns out. And they have negative outcomes when it comes to cancer. So I hope she gets well, and I hope she leaves. I hope she leaves the White House, not because of her policy per se, but because isn't that the nice human thing to do? That would be normal. I want to try to grasp back at the reality of like, this is a human being who's not well. And instead, that person is also going to stick around. Now, again, I would not be surprised if she was gone within a week or two, that this was the soft announcement of stepping away. But I also wouldn't be surprised if she stuck around for the next 6-8 months when she should, in fact, be worrying about her health if she wants to stick around for longer for somebody other than America. I don't think it's around America. I don't think America needs you at this point. There's not one individual person that's going to make or break the difference, including Donald Trump, by the way. But it does seem like in politics, people get it in their head that they're the only person that can do this. God forbid anyone else take away this thing. President Donald Trump announced Monday that White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles has been diagnosed with breast cancer. She's going to continue to serve in her role while undergoing treatment. I understand that people stick in their jobs. I don't think she's doing it for the money. So then you have to ask other questions. And she's got plenty of money to not have to do that. In a True Social post on Monday morning, that was yesterday, Donald Trump says that Wiles has been diagnosed with early stage breast cancer. She's decided to take on this challenge immediately as opposed to waiting. I don't even know what that means. Called her a great person, one of the strongest people I know. That's very complimentary. She has a fantastic medical team. Her prognosis is excellent. And then here he says the weirdest thing that you could write. During the treatment period, she will spend virtually full time at the White House, which makes me, as president, very happy. I actually don't even know what I'm supposed to take away from that sentence, which is why maybe as people start getting a little bit upper in years and they start making a little bit less sense, and I've got more examples of that because Donald Trump said a bunch of wishy-washy weird stuff for the last couple of days, including thinking about maybe he would have the honor of taking over Cuba. I'm not kidding. I'm going to play that in a second for you as well. And then he also said, we won the war in Iran, but we're not done with the war in Iran. It's really hard to track that. And this sentence is equally hard to track. She's going to be spending virtually full time. I don't even know what virtually full time. She's going to continue to be a full-time worker. She's going to move into the White House and work there. Her strength and her commitment to continue doing the job she loves and does so well while undergoing treatment tells you everything you need to know about her. It actually tells me a lot of things that I don't like about it. It tells me that you don't know when to go away and take care of yourself. It tells me that you don't understand that there are priorities in life, and maybe one of them might be family, and it's a little bit bigger than whatever you're doing there. And this sense that people who work in this political world and they're in Washington, D.C., they think they're the only people. They think no one else can do it, that they are not replaceable. I watched this experience when I was working for the Bureau in a very small way, and I'm going to break away from the story after this. I watched people, and this is maybe one of the reasons why people get suicidal when they leave certain jobs. They are in the military. They serve in a job where they think that everything they do is life or death, and everything they do for their unit can never be replaced by anyone. They're the only ones. You see it in the firefighting community. You see it in the emergency medical community. You see it in physicians who work in the ER, a God complex almost sometimes. You see it in law enforcement where they have that same sort of attitude. Nobody can keep the evil at bay but me. It's all about whether or not I am on the job. And if I'm on the job, the world is safe. And if I leave, it won't be. And then they retire. And when they do, they realize that the world is a merry-go-round that goes around and around and around. And whether you're on it or you're off it, it's completely irrelevant. It just doesn't stop because you got off. And the minute you take a second and you stop and you recognize like, hey, all of that job, all of that thing where I thought that I was the center of everything and that if I wasn't on the ride was not happening. You step away from it. You watch the ride keep going. And I think some people look into the dark abyss and realize that like, it didn't matter whether you were there or not. It mattered to you, and it might have mattered to people around you that loved you for what you were doing. But so many people think that the mission is the job, that their identity is one in the job. I see it with the badge, but it can also be with these political things. They think that their identity is, I am this senator, I am this congressperson, I am this chief of staff in the White House. And if I'm not doing it, then the world ends. And then you realize every couple of years we have a little revolution here. People get in and get out, and it doesn't matter. And there's an inky blackness that people have to decide. This is why I've never described myself by my job first, because I've had a lot of jobs. There are some jobs that will never go away. They're more like roles. They're things that you've taken on. I will be a husband to my wife for as long as I'm around. I will be a father to my children. I can't not be that. Those things don't go away. But I will not be a member of the military. I wasn't always going to be an airman. I knew that. I wasn't always going to be an FBI agent. I knew that when I was an FBI agent. And if people operated under the idea that this is my time to serve in this role, but once it goes away, whoosh, there are other things that are more important. There are more things that are permanent. It'd be better if we thought about ourselves in terms of the immutable things that we will not be able to take away. And too many times we see this sort of Susie Wiles attitude. I'm not mad at her for it per se, because she's just one person that does something that a lot of people do. But the idea that nobody could replace you, that you need to be there, and if you're not there, then who would do this job? It is a prideful position. And we all have the potential of falling into it. So as you look at this story, it'd be good to have a human instinct on it, which is to say, I wish her well. I really do. I would like to say that I would say the same thing about some of the other people that I thought did some really evil things in this country, the previous administration, which really, really upended my personal life. I think from a few minutes away from it, I could take a deep breath and go, I don't necessarily wish ill on a Joe Biden, who's also going through cancer stuff right now. I don't wish ill even on a Kamala Harris. I don't want them to be in power ever again, and I hope that they find something else to do with their time. But amusingly, not only do we see these people say something, then they step out of it, and like, who wakes up every morning and is mad at Joe Biden today? Anyone? Like, I just don't think anybody is. People are mad about what's going on right now because this is what's permanent, because the merry-go-round has gone away from it. It really has separated, like, that time and distance. It takes away the emotionality of it. So for whatever it's worth, I wish her well. I hope she steps down. I hope she leaves for her own sake. I hope she leaves for America's sake. And I hope that somebody who understands that we have like a really important moment right now, and there's a really, really short window of time where something can be fixed. And I'm not sure it will be, but it'd be really nice if Republicans started acting a little bit more conservatively. They're probably only going to get a couple more months of this. And then, you know, in January of 2027, I think we experience whatever comes next. That's the odds. That's the high odds. All right, we're going to pivot to a bunch of other stuff. First, let me just remind you, if you guys are watching right now, give us a like on YouTube, give us a like over on Rumble. Appreciate that. Subscribe to either channel or both channels, even better. Set yourself for notifications if you want to know. We go live at 0930 Eastern time, plus or minus a minute or two. Locals, you can follow us over there. That's where all the sponsor ads are, so you guys can click through that. It's kyleseraphin.com, very easy to get to. You can be a paid or a free member of our community, and you can interact with the folks that are here, that are in the chat in the mornings. That's kind of cool. You guys put up posts of things that are interesting, and I get to read it as well. We're also posting things on there on a regular basis. So see a little bit of that. There's also the chance to be part of our call-in show every week, which happens on Thursdays. And then lastly, we'll play a Spotify ad right now. If you guys want to support us on the back end of it, make sure you have Spotify, kyleseraphinshow.com. That's the best audio and video platform for the after. And the Tackleberry project is pending. I'm still working on lighting. I got some more lighting set up. I'm going to get it done. I got to actually figure out like what the hell we're going to cover on there, because I have so much stuff. It's not even funny. For those of you who don't know, I'm doing this like gear project where I don't even think there's going to be money involved. It's just, I want to share some knowledge. I've spent more money on guns, gadgets, gear, belts, accessories. Like I had a discussion with an ATF agent one time where he was like, what happened to this thing? And I'm like, bro, I've lost more gun parts than you've ever bought in your whole life. I have an entire 52-inch wide, storage chest, like a toolbox that's just full of like extra gun parts. I have modular springs from every, version of a 1911, all the Glocks, all the M&Ps, all the SIGs. I have extra barrels like coming out of my ears for stuff. I have drop barrels and throwaway barrels for all my different guns. I think I don't like Glock handguns, for those of you who don't know, but I carry one every day and I have like 14 of them. Like, I don't know. I just want to be able to share that knowledge to people when they go out and they spend their money and they're like, I don't have all the money to buy 50 guns. I want to buy one or two that really work well. That's kind of what I want to share. So that's what we're doing on the Tackleberry project. Check it out. There's a link on the channel on YouTube. There's also, I think it's also I am your Tackleberry on Rumble. That's where we grab the channel too. So let's do that. All right. So those are good things. Let's talk about kind of this ongoing theater thing. How about something else that's really bothering me? And bothering, I think, Americans if they think about it. Is it about money? Is that the Susie Wiles story? Is that why she's there? That she can't leave because of money, because of the people that she owes allegiance to? Do we have this instinct that all of our politicians are bought and paid for? Tom Massey went up and spoke about something that we brought up on this program. I think it may have been a long game to get a thing called amnesty or immunity for the herbicide producers of Roundup and glyphosates, which are these, potentially toxic and potentially cancer causing. I say potentially because I don't have the proof on it, but it sounds like there's a lot of it. There's some big settlements. Massey went out and brought up this question of Roundup, which is owned by a medical company. Let's just for a second zoom back out. There's a non-American company called Bayer, which makes aspirins and pharmaceuticals and also makes herbicides, which kill off like broadleaf weeds. And they're bringing the money that they have to lobby and try to get immunity for a product which may actually cause serious problems for human beings and part of our consumption. And I actually remember that Donald Trump campaigned on that as well, because that was part of the quote unquote MAHA, the Make America Healthy Again agenda. It turns out the guy who's the secretary over at HHS has been a lifelong fight against. He's been in this fight against pharmaceuticals and not properly labeling and getting them off our foods. And Massey's kind of turning the spectrum on that. Again, it seems to me that it ends up being about money. And then people think money equals my purpose. These are like some of the oldest sins in the book. So here's a little quick question about, are we under siege from a pharmaceutical company that also makes poison?
Madam Speaker, I rise today to let the American people know that this government is under siege. All three branches of this government is under siege by lobbyists and lawyers from a German company named Bayer. They spent over $9 million lobbying the executive branch and the legislative branch so that they don't have to be liable for any damages that their herbicide causes, otherwise known as Roundup. And they're having some success. Now, they haven't had any success yet in this chamber to get that immunity. They've had some success in the state legislatures, which are also under siege, to get this immunity from liability. Look, the Constitution guarantees people a trial if they've been harmed. Why are we contemplating going against the Constitution? The Attorney General has opined favorably for this German company in front of the Supreme Court about getting rid of any liability that they should have for any damages. And the most recent thing that we've seen, the executive branch. By the way, the president's chief of staff and the president's attorney general work for one of the biggest lobbying firms that's received hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars from Bayer. And maybe that's why we've seen an executive order that says that the production of this chemical from this German company is a national defense priority. And we know why they're doing that. It's to keep them from having any liability.
Huh. You see how these things end up kind of dovetailing into each other. If you guys don't know, Susie Wiles used to be the managing partner for the Jacksonville office of a group called Ballard Partners. Ballard Partners is a huge influence shop out of Florida. Used to employ Pam Bondi. So there's your connection there. Interestingly enough, we've seen going back to 2016, 2017, when Julie Kelly, who's the famous hero of MAGA and J6ers and so on, and not someone I'm a fan of, Julie Kelly is married to a man named John J. Kelly. Her husband owns the biggest influence shop in Illinois, which is where Dick Durbin's out of. And it turns out one of his big clients, ADM, is a massive industrial agriculture business. And she, Julie Kelly, hero of MAGA, right, helped get Donald Trump into the White House, has spent an awful lot of time lobbying on behalf of GMOs, genetically modified organisms, which means genetically, modified food products, and also specifically has taken on that Roundup does not cause cancer and it's not bad for you. And it's interesting because all of those things were in fact sort of put in her voice, as far as we can tell. The research about the words that she was actually publishing in places like the Los Angeles Times and Forbes and some other outlets when she was a quote unquote food blogger, which you hear about. The food blogging wasn't actually food blogging. It was actually paid propaganda, from what it looks like, from Monsanto. And Monsanto is the company, it's the parent company, Roundup. So very, very interesting about that. Oh, and then lastly, lest you think that there's no connection between Ballard and what goes on with the Julie Kelly and the Monsanto and the John J. Kelly firm. In 2016, Ballard Partners signed a deal with Allcirca, which is John J. Kelly's company. It's the reason why Julie Kelly has the millions she does. They signed a deal in 2016 that says that they are now sharing influence between Illinois and Florida. So you have these business agreements between major companies, and then they're also now represented pretty well in the White House. How interesting about that? Those are not specific allegations. Those are factual statements where you can line up that they actually have to have business involvement, that they have some conflicts of interest, one would think, and having someone who's a former lobbyist for this big, influence shop in Florida sitting as the number 2 in the White House as the chief of staff, and then maybe they can't leave. Isn't it interesting? You find out you got cancer and your first thought is, I'm going to keep working harder. Why would that be? Like, what sort of things do you owe? Like, what sort of requirements do you have? And so this is why you end up with people that kind of take this in bad faith. I hope she steps down, Susie Wiles. I hope she does. For herself. There's only so much time you get on the earth. And at some point, like, it can't be worth it to be robbing from your grandchildren or living life. And America doesn't need you there, it turns out, because when you jump off the carousel, it'll keep going around you. It's pretty obvious to me. All right. One more piece of domestic news coming out of Washington, D.C. I think this is interesting. This was in the stories today. We haven't left this story, let you guys know. It's been working in the background. It's going to continue to work in the background. I had a very nice conversation with the people that are still working on this. The D.C. pipe bomber suspect argues that he should be covered by Donald Trump's J6 pardon. So this is coming under the Capitol riot heading from NBC News. It's written by three people, Gary Grumbach and Ryan Riley, and a woman who has too many names. Her name is Raquel Cornell Uribe. Lawyers for the man charged with planting the pipe bombs near the Republican and Democratic National Committee's headquarters on January 5th, 2021, said in a new court filing that he should be covered by Donald Trump's blanket pardon of J6 defendants. The attorneys for Brian Cole Jr. maintain his innocence. They also argued that if he did place the bombs, Trump's pardon of people that were, quote, involved in events at or near the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021 should cover his alleged actions. Quote, the devices at issue in this case were discovered and neutralized on the afternoon of January 6, 2021 at the National Party headquarters on Capitol Hill, literally at or near the United States Capitol as the day's larger events unfolded, said attorney Mario Williams in a written motion to dismiss the case. They're continuing to argue from all different sides. I'll show you. They've got the Cole family here that is supporting. I heard some stories about folks in the courtroom as these things have gone on. Number one, the young man named Brian Cole Jr. does not appear to be the kind of person who can walk the way that the pipe bomber did for the 30 minutes or so that we have on camera footage. There are some additional specific identifiers that do not align with, to include people that have spoken to me personally and have seen him in person. You've heard the testimonies or the story coverage of Steve Baker, who's come on this program. If you guys are not following Steve, now would be a good time to follow him. If this story is something that you tuned into this podcast originally and you were interested in and you'd like to continue hearing about it, you'd be foolish not to follow him over on X or over on Locals, and you can find Steve Baker. It's at Real Steve, or what is it? It's at Steve Baker USA. And I think we'll have Steve on real soon. He's in the middle of working on some things. He's also working on a heart condition, which happened incidentally. His heart condition hit him one day after he was doing some very specific measurements on whether or not Brian Cole Jr. and the physical measurements that he has, like his actual physiological presence in the world, could even match the alleged actions on January 5th of 2021. You know, we all have a specific gait. We all have a specific foot size. We all have a specific stride length. We all have a certain amount of hip mobility and arm movement and shoulder and posture. And our heads move in certain ways that are unique to us. It turns out, like, your physical body moves through time and space a lot like you. To the point where, if you listen to this, there are many people who can see someone walk through the door and know who that person is simply by the way that they move without even having to make eye contact. You can see their motion. You can, just like if you guys were watching Seinfeld, you always knew when Kramer was coming through the door, right? Because he had this sort of characteristic, like, you know, this is an over-exaggerated example, but you would like fly into the room. Jerry, hey, you know, like he would do this. We all have things that we do that are unusual. I can hear footsteps upstairs and know which one of my kids it is, almost always. The speed, the weight, it's unique to us. Anyway, Steve Baker was involved in doing some measurements on that. And the day after that, he came down with a debilitating, previously undiagnosed, no particular explanation for late onset heart situation. He's dealing with some AFib. And anyway, keep praying for his continued health. But every time I talk to him, he sounds more and more enthusiastic. And, you know, this story can't go away because the story of the pipe bomber is something that the Blaze is invested in. Now that they have a suspect in there, the question is this the guy? And you're seeing a two-pronged approach by his attorneys. Number one, he's not the guy. You got the wrong person. And there are many holes that are in this story. A lot of them. Some of them include, like, as we've covered here before, and you guys can go back and find anything that has Brian Cole's face or the pipe bomber in the thumbnail will be a good place to start. They're all over the place on our channel. But some of them are going to involve, like, the buying of materials and the government's illogical arguments. It's like he was involved in wiping his phone, and he wiped his phone almost 1,000 times. And you're like, yeah, but he didn't start doing that until till 18 months after the pipe bombs were dropped. So what are you talking about? That's not related. That's not even proximate at all to what's going on here. Then you can talk about some of the things about the buying of materials. It's like in his confession, he allegedly said that he bought the materials and then after he was seen on TV, he dumped them. But then he kept buying more of them. And some of the things they can't account for him buying at all. But they were able to account for things that he bought in cash prior to. And he bought them in some order that doesn't make any sense. Not to mention, the people that actually know him don't think he could do it. The people that have lived in his neighborhood and watched him walk around said there's no way that this guy possesses the means, the motive, the wherewithal, the facilities to actually calculate out like where are all the cameras and how can I do my ingress and my egress route. And then, of course, there's the damning thing about the fact that his freaking car is most likely not there at the time. There is a location that the FBI seems to have fed, which is, I can show you on the map another time. We'll do another long sort of discussion of this. But Brian Cole Jr.'s car has to be in this blind spot that's sitting over by Folger Park in Washington, D.C. And it turns out there's cameras that cover in and out of there, and it doesn't appear that his vehicle was there. But it does appear that while he's supposed to be there, his camera is actually driving somewhere else a few miles away. All of this stuff is to say that the FBI is committed to this. Our federal government is committed to some of these things. And when they commit to a lie, they just stick with it. I think that brings us to the Iran war, because right now we are in a moment where you said words, not me. This government was brought in under the premise that they were going to do certain promises for the Americans. 20 promises to the American people, Agenda 47. I'll put it up on the screen again. Number 8 was prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe and the Middle East. And I don't know how you restore peace through bombing and getting other people bombed as well. But it's pretty illogical. And so I'm going to go into the sort of the strange moment of what are we getting into here? Who is this guy that's sitting in the White House? And why is it that so many people that voted for him don't recognize what he's about? Let's start with the maybe the most over the top, embarrassing claims, which are coming from Mark Levin. I did some impressions of Mark Levin. I cannot help but hear Mark Levin. I think he is a whiny, weak, silly old man that is like, maybe he had a purpose at some point and maybe what he did was principled and interesting. But so often, as Dan Bongino once accused me of, these people buy their own hype. Someone calls you the great one for so long, and then you start thinking you are this thing. Imagine the illogical statement that you wrote this up on your pad, or maybe you just say it because you just spew bullshit all the time. And you say, Donald Trump is falling into the history of the greatest peacetime/wartime presidents. Okay, so there's only two possibilities. You're either a peacetime president or you're a wartime president, or I guess you could be one who is in peace and then you start a war. But like peace and war are kind of like the two things you could be in. Apparently Donald Trump is the greatest in the same way that Mark Levin is the greatest, I guess, at this point. We're now going to listen to kind of a whiny person who seems very aligned with foreign interests more than American. And let's do this real quick.
Donald Trump is operating in the tradition of our greatest peacetime/wartime presidents. Despite the outrageous media coverage in this country, despite the constant efforts under Operation Sabotage by a Democrat Party that is hell-bent on losing this war, that is hell-bent on undermining the commander-in-chief, that is hell-bent on undermining our armed forces, and yes, is giving aid and comfort, propaganda to the enemy, as are individuals who I call the woke right neo-fascists, who are stirring the anti-Semitism pot, who are stirring the trash Christian pot. They are no different than the same voices we heard in the 1930s, and just as disgusting, evil, and reprehensible.
If you don't believe what Donald Trump says, then you are a Nazi. Okay, here you go. This is the real MAGA now. This is the problem that people are having. We're dealing with cognitive dissonance for folks. Again, I think there are three camps. There are people who resist because Donald Trump said it's good. And so whatever Donald Trump says, I think the opposite of it. That's camp number one. Then there's camp number two. They say, I think what Donald Trump said was good. It probably wasn't enough, but I'm on board for it. If you don't do it, though, I'm disappointed. That's my camp. And then there's camp number three, where whatever Donald Trump says is good, and I'm going to go with it. Which means now you have to love Lindsey Graham and you have to explain it to yourself. I don't have to explain it to you. You have to explain it to you. Because Donald Trump said Lindsey Graham is the best. If you're not seeing the screen, there's Lindsey Graham leaning in there, smiling. His thumb is doing an impression of a war boner, which means it is erect because we are currently doing war stuff. Mark Levin is MAGA now. All the things that people would have otherwise been like, it's pretty hard to actually explain. That's not what I'm about. You now have to take that on. That's your requirement, not mine. You can sit in my camp. My camp just says we're going to judge it on principles. We're going to go over here and we're going to look and we're going to say, hey, these are the promises. Let's make America affordable again. Let's work on a domestic agenda. Let's try to build, domestic energy. Let's try to work on things that matter to the regular people. But that camp number one continues to be a weird problem. And I actually saw a guy who I've literally never seen this guy until the last couple of weeks. I'm sure he's been out there, but he's getting pushed pretty hard on Rumble, which is our biggest platform. He has showed up now as a guest on Dan Bongino's show, which I showed you yesterday. This guy, Graham Allen, goes out and starts talking about this morning. The first tweet that I saw that popped up in my little feed, because I follow people that I don't agree with or that I think are going to say strange things to me. He said that America is now fighting for the soul of the nation, which is a direct quote that Joe Biden said. Are the same? I just wonder, are the same people writing the talking points for both sides? If you ever wanted an example, if you ever needed evidence more that the political left in this country, and I should put that in air quotes because I don't even know what left is, and if they're going to be the political right, which is actually still to the left of me, if you look at those two people, and they're all using the same words and the same terms, and everybody is a fascist, and everybody is a Nazi, and if you don't agree with me, then it's 1930s Germany. Like, if those are the things, if you're going to call people who don't agree with you Nazis, which is a leftist thing, I remember it because it was only a couple of minutes ago they were doing that to everybody. And they definitely are going to do it to people like me. Like, I'm a Catholic father of 4 children. I've been married one time and I intend to be married to the end of my life with it. That's my boat. That's my boat. Okay. That makes me a Nazi to these people on the left. To have folks on the right, to have the Mark Levins call it a propaganda operation, much more like the viral Republic in the 1930s. You sound like a freaking Nazi, man. You sound like a nasally Hitler type. And so it's strange to watch that happen. It's strange to watch these people pivot and use the exact same talking points, the soul of the nation, which is something that came out of the most Nazi-looking thing that I've seen in, let's say, my lifetime, which was Joe Biden standing in front of Independence Hall with the red speech, with the background with the Marines and the banners, standing there at a podium and doing Nazi things and saying Nazi-like stuff. If the people on the political right are going to adopt that, I think we need to notice it. And I think it is, in fact, evidence that the same damn people are writing the script. And so they'll play you off each other. But like at the end of the day, a Graham Allen, a Dan Bongino, a Cash, they're not my enemy. Donald Trump is not my enemy. The enemy is, why are our voting electorate, why do we even think that it's not getting passed through with the SAVE Act? Why can we not get this stuff done? So what is stopping the members of Congress? And it sounds like it's probably money and influence and power and all the things that go on in the background. We played Tom Massey a minute ago. There's all these things that are in play. And it's not like these minor personalities. The minor personalities seem like they're doing the theater. So here's a diagnostic. It's coming from, I don't know if it's either called the Provoked or the Counterpoint podcast. But this is 2 guys having a quick discussion about the influencer environment. This is the reason why I detest the term influencer. Detest it. I find it insulting. If somebody says, oh, you're an influencer, it's like, God, help me from that. I don't want to be an influencer. I want to be a person that has an opinion. And if you happen to agree with my opinion, great. And if you don't, I hope you thought about your opinion and you can defend yours and then you can attack mine. You could just say some things. You could say, oh, here's what you didn't think of. Here's some historical perspective that you don't have. Here's the logical fallacy you committed with your train of thinking. And I can look at it and go, you know what? You're right. Or I'd be like, oh, no, you're not correct. That's not even what that term means. So let's have that. Let's have the debate about ideas. And what you instead see is sort of like blind faith and then character attacks. Let me give you, actually, before we do that podcast piece, first of all, I'll just remind you guys to like the video if you're watching. So Rumble, like, same story over on YouTube. Please do it if you guys haven't done so already. We'll play a Spotify ad if they want to put one in right now. So this is a good opportunity for that. KyleSeraphinShow.com is how you find it. I don't want to belabor it. I got a Laura Loomer clip of all things. Laura Loomer decided she was going to try to disagree with me, which was really funny. Yesterday, she said she got invited to India for a conference. She's apparently in India and responding and she is defending herself from all sides. Laura Loomer is not someone that I like, never have liked, not someone I agree with. I disagree with deplatforming people, though. I have principles. I think that she should have a right to speak. I would never want to stop her from speaking. Amusingly, early on, when I first stepped into the space, Laura Loomer looked like a loony to me from the beginning. And yet I still think that if you're an American and you've never been accused of anything, you've never been convicted of something, I even believe that felons should have gun rights and have them restored. So I actually have a chat group on my phone with a guy who's friends with some FFLs and knows some of the legal process in Florida. And we were going to work on getting Laura Loomer's gun rights back because I think that is right as a citizen in America. I also think Laura Loomer is a complete nut. And she still should have the right to own a gun if she's an American. If she's free enough to walk around on her own 2 feet in the United States, then she should be able to own a gun. Those are my principles. So an armed Laura Loomer doesn't bother me. But it is kind of funny that she's described herself as part of camp number 1. So let's diagnose the camp number 1. Camp number 1 is whatever Donald Trump says is good for me, completely loyal to the person, not to any principles, not to those core promises that were made. This, I actually think, is the biggest problem. And the fact that there are people that share this stuff on, it's bizarre. It's cult-like. Cult-like is about, like, we even had songs about this. We've had a concept of it, the cult of personality. The cult of personality says, you're so likable that whatever you say is good enough for me. Loomer actually said that on camera a couple days ago, within the last couple days. And she did so in India. She spent a bunch of time bagging on India. Then she's gone on like this apology tour in India. The weirdest thing is all the shitty things she said about India, excuse my language, but it's kind of a pun there, right? All the things she said about India are things that normal people think in America about India. We're not a big fan of it. I had 2 Indian guys in a car driving at 1 mile an hour, following my wife yesterday and my daughter when I was like, half a block away. And I'm watching them going like, what are you guys about to do? There's a woman who's under 5 feet tall and a tiny little beautiful blonde baby who's 2 years old that's like toddling around out there. And you've got these dudes like slow cruising behind. I don't know if they were learning how to drive or they were just like trying to intimidate them or they're confused or that's what you do in India when you see someone that you want to stare at, that you just drive behind them slowly. I sat there and I was like, I hope these guys don't get out of their car because I'm going to have to put 2 Audi owners into the ground. They're weirdo Indians. You don't do that in America. If any of you slowed down behind a woman who was walking in a neighborhood to 1 mile an hour and drove behind them, you would know that there were going to be some bad things that were about to happen to you if you opened the door. Like that woman could mace you or she could shoot you or her husband, like me, might pick a fail drill from that distance. Like that's what I saw. That was super weird. Laura Loomer's on the apology tour for those people. The reason that people are not happy about having a bunch of Indians come into the United States is because they didn't assimilate well. There was this weird Indian gathering that was happening at our HOA last night. And it happens like 4 times a week. They rent out the facility for free because it doesn't cost anything. It's the HOA center. And they have these like Indian costume parades where they set up these weird, leaves and I don't know what the hell they're doing. And they're taking pictures and there's professional photography and all this other crap. It's like, I understand they're here because of the tech work. I also don't know why the hell they're here. I also don't know why Donald Trump's behind it. Here's Laura Loomer doing an apology to these people and explaining that she's a Donald Trump loyalist. Again, this is the people that won't ask the questions because now Donald Trump is pro H-1B visas for whatever.
Well, look, I consider myself to be a Trump loyalist. And one of the things that makes our friendship and our relationship so unique is that I feel that the president can trust me to always give him advice on who's being loyal and who's being disloyal. And I spent a lot of time as an investigative reporter doing research into people who work in the administration who may be undermining his agenda or undermining the America First agenda. And we talk about a lot of different things, but anytime I speak to the president, it's constructive. I'm giving him information that is going to be beneficial to him, helping him identify bad actors in the country, bad actors in his administration, informing him of people who are bad-mouthing him, and also making him aware of issues pertinent to the base.
Oh. You're telling people who are bad actors that are not loyal to him? How about people that tell him honestly that he's screwing things up because there are things that are being screwed up because he's not getting any advice? If your move is to be blindly loyal to a man and not to the principles that the man is attempting to serve by his own words, then you're a fool. That's a toxic position. By the way, somebody in the chat just asked, are they playing cricket in your neighborhood yet? Yes, they are. When I went to go vote last time, before the primaries in November of last year. When I went to go vote, there were dudes smashing a cricket ball around in a parking lot that was full of cars when there was a field that they could have walked into and hit not into cars. And I watched a cricket ball or whatever the hell those things are made out of, like bounce off somebody's car. And I was like, dude, if you hit my truck, I'm going to break your face. I'm not going to allow someone to like smash a ball because you're like a mongoloid with a low IQ. You and all your brother cousins are all hanging out there smashing a ball around where there's people's vehicles, which cost tens of thousands of dollars. There were several $100,000 worth of cars in a parking lot for a school. And these morons are standing on concrete when there's grass right there, smashing a ball around with a cricket bat. And I heard it bounce and I'm like, that's not a wiffle ball. If it's a wiffle ball, I'd still be pissed. Like, if you're a teenager doing that, we're going to have words. If you're a grown man from India in my country speaking like I don't understand why we're having the problem with the cricket, where we are not allowed to hit the cricket ball here. It's like, because someone's going to smash you with, I'm going to run you over with my freaking ranch hand grill. What are you doing? Why are you following my wife at 1 mile an hour? Laura Loomer's on an apology tour talking to these people. It's freaking bizarre. And it really is. It's like, okay, well, shouldn't the position be that screw India? Donald Trump's position that he ran on, the 20 core promises are not that far from bacon cheeseburger nationalism, by the way, folks. Especially the first couple, right? They're all about blend into this country, be part of this country, come here legally. Seal the border, stop the migrant invasion, carry the largest deportation operation in American history. It should also have been shut down the H-1B visa programs and stop like letting people pay for less. You guys are asking, did I say something to them? Yeah, of course I said something to them. I told them to get the hell out of the parking lot and stop hitting the ball at people's cars and that the sheriff's department was en route, which they were, because I called the sheriff's department because there's like 13 of them and I'm not trying to have like a fight with 13-year-old or 13 retards, which is what they were. Like, you're retarded if you're hitting a ball at a bunch of people's cars. There's windows, there's glass, there's hoods. Like, what the hell's wrong with this? In any case, the Bacon Cheeseburger Nationalist Program says you can be here in the United States. No problem. You can. You just have to assimilate to our culture, which means you don't play cricket in the parking lot. You don't slow cruise behind women in a neighborhood. You drive the road the way that it's meant to be driven. I see Indian people in the United States, like in the Central Texas area regularly, just stop because they don't know what they're doing. And every damn one of them has like a student driver. It's like, okay, then stop driving in my state. Get off the road. It's bad enough that we have people that don't know how to drive already. It's quite awful when we have people that drive like a third world nation where they just park in the middle of anywhere. Just looking around going, who are you people? What are you doing here? Bacon Cheeseburger Nationalism says, very simply, if you're not going to eat a cheeseburger, which I saw, someone sent me something in my DMs the other day. It was a petition on change.org where people go like, I've got a problem. Like, how can we fix this? Like, maybe we could all sign on to it. It's Indian people in the United States that are not from the US, that are not born here. They're born overseas. They come to the US and there's a petition of Indian people trying to stop cheeseburgers from being sold without a warning label that the cheeseburger includes beef, aka cow. That is a real thing. You guys can go find it on change.org today. You can go look it up. People from not America would like a cheeseburger to be listed as beef if it includes beef. Which, by the way, if someone gives you a cheeseburger and it is not beef, that is grounds for you to hit them in the face with a cricket bat. 100%. If you give me a non-beef burger without the warning like, hey, this isn't meat, this is soy. If you give me a soy burger without a warning that it's soy and it's not actually a cow, I will spit it in your face. And as should everybody. All cheeseburgers are beef. The Bacon Cheeseburger Nationalists would be offended if you did the alternative, if you did the opposite. You want a warning label on a beef product that's made with beef? Like, get out. The meat is made with real meat. What's going on here? Like, this is a crazy position. Hence, when you look at these promises that are made, it's about common sense and sanity, one would think, which is something that Donald Trump was praising on Mark Levin, which I don't think is true. Bacon, cheeseburger, nationalism, cheese, bacon, beef. Super easy stuff to understand. It's like, that's just the American diet. The alternative of it should not have to be explained. So weird. All right. Why am I talking about all this? Because there are people that are apologizing to Indians. They're apologizing to Donald Trump. They're apologizing to anybody that feels offended. And more importantly, they think that they have the right to be very upset with you if you don't just get in line with the new slop that is constantly changing. Again, Trump's statement about he was listed as being xenophobic. Do you guys recall this? This is one of the big labels. You don't hear anybody calling him a xenophobe anymore, do you? Because he's fine with 600,000 Chinese students being in the U.S. university system. He's fine with illegal workers being here as long as they're in the systems of, like, I don't know, working for restaurants, working for hospitality, working in fields, which is the whole thing that Americans are talking about. Either everybody goes or nobody goes. You got to have principles. So this shifting alliance of I don't have any principles, I'm loyal to the man is problematic. Here's a quick little discussion about that.
So you have these conservative influencer types I don't know, like a Will Chamberlain, if you see him ever on Twitter, right? Oh,
goodness, yes.
Who, if you watch the evolution of his statements from last June up until now, it's just rationalizing the new thing. It's Israel's not asking for our help. They just want us to get out of their way. Okay, we have to go in and bomb their nuclear sites. But hey, there was no type of expansion of the war. The war is over. How could you guys panic? How do you feel now saying that this war is we're back in the war? Oh, well, that's okay. And the U.S. is taking the lead in it. Well, that's actually really important because we have to, control oil supplies, because we're competing with China or what. All of these things, no case that was ever made at the very beginning of the thing. It's all just reactive, step by step. Every time Trump does something that invalidates their previous position, they have to come up with a new one. And so you have people like that who, somebody like Will, I mean, it's sort of a Sean Hannity type. Like his job is to push the Likud position. That's it. Whatever the talking points go out, that's what his position is. It's very.
You guys want to hear the best example of whatever the talking points are, then that's the Sean Hannity position. By the way, the idea that we need Sean Hannity for hours on end in the quote unquote limited hangout with Sean Hannity thing that he's doing, this new podcast, is actually hilarious. And when you look online, the people just roast it because it's like, you know what we need? More shilling from some dude who somebody always tags me and they're like, did you know that he used to wash dishes and he hung drywall 55 years ago, back at 1,000 years ago before he was not Sean Hannity? This was Sean Hannity last night. This is how you know what propaganda looks like. When you use religious language to justify a secular action, you are now doing the same thing the left does. 100%. If you're in the Graham Allen, Dan Bongino camp, who I would say are slightly below the Sean Hannity, but they're equally doing the same op. I'm not saying that they're being paid for it. I'm just saying that they're part of it. There's an audience aspiration. It's like, my audience needs me to be in camp number one. Camp number one says, whatever Donald Trump does, that's the best thing that's ever been done. It's the greatest. Nobody's ever done anything as great as this one. This is it. If you're in that camp, then you need to play to that audience. You play to it because you don't have any principles. Your principles are, what is the best thing that I can say about this man in this exact moment? We showed it yesterday. If you're making the argument that the soul of the nation is at stake, the soul, this metaphysical concept of our eternal self that goes on into heaven or goes into hell after in the afterlife, this is religious language you're talking about. Sean Hannity does it as well. And by the way, the left did it all the time. The argument I make is that leftism is a secular religion. That's why they get so riled up about it. The people on the right are no better. Everyone thought they might be. We used to think that people that are on the political right, that should be in air quotes with a capital R, TM, right? Not real conservatives, but actual people who just, align with the GOP. Those people have basically gone to the left position as well. If they're all to the left of me, and I think they are, and they'll be to the left of many of you as well, then they have also started adopting this sort of religious thing. And you know it because government is God. That's the key on the far left. Government is God. All good things come from government. You're watching the Republicans do the same thing right now. Their solutions to government problems are more government. In fact, they're spending as much money. There's almost no difference in the budgetary problems. In fact, you've actually jumped up the spending under Donald Trump from the previous guy and the guy before that, Barack Obama. Like, they're blowing out the budget. So why would that be? Well, if government is God, it can just create money and it can give us all the good things. Sean Hannity calls the military excursion in Iran a miracle. Is that not religious language? Tell me if this doesn't shine for you as just like the ultimate turned up full speed gaslight.
But now many on the left, some on the right, are in full panic mode over what is a historic miracle unfolding before our eyes known as Operation Epic Fury. Which brings us to another fundamental question. Are these Trump haters really willing to risk a nuclear-armed Iran? Stop. Freeze frame. That is the defining question, not really a debatable question. You either want a nuclear-armed Iran, you're comfortable leaving your children and grandchildren with such, or you're not. Are they comfortable with the world's #1 state sponsor of terrorism that says death to Israel, death to America, that, according to them, telling Steve Witkoff, are in possession of 460 kilograms of enriched uranium? Right now, that's 60% enrichment, 7 to 10 days. Guess what? That's enough for 11 nuclear bombs in a very short period of time. So are these Trump...
Listen, all I'm saying is that in the next few days or in the next few months or in the next few years or in the next few days or in the next couple hours or in the next few minutes or in the next few days or pretty soon or pretty close to now, or they might already have, but they almost did have 60%, 90% enrichment. They're almost there to the nuclear bomb for the last 30 years. How many times do you need to be told this? By the way, why is he saying that? Oh, because that's the talking point that's marched out. Why are we in this war? It's about oil. It's about nukes. It's about short-range ballistic missiles. It's about Iran counter-striking us because we were going to strike them because Israel was going to strike them, but then we struck them first. There's no answer to this. It's just muddled garbage. So now we're all panicking. Does this sound like I'm panicking? I'm not panic. I just think you're retarded. I think that you're saying things that are nonsense. There's no way you believe it. Sean Hannity is not dumb. None of these people are stupid. They're just dishonest. They're dishonest because they know where their bread is buttered, and their bread is buttered in their audience is camp #1. Whatever my guy does, that's what I have to cheer on. And if that means that I've got to do it in religious terms, so be it. Here's Donald Trump talking about oil. Was it about oil? Nah, because we've got plenty of oil, but we need to get the cost of oil down. But we did this. We made the cost of oil go up, and we had to go to Venezuela because they took our oil. But now we're going to go do this in Iran, and it's about nukes. But it's not about nukes, really, because nobody would have let us have nukes. Everyone wishes they were to bomb them about the nukes. What the hell happened with Midnight Hammer in June of last year when we flew in a bunch of B-2 bombers, which was freaking cool, by the way? It's freaking cool that we can take off from a plane in the United States, fly to another country that is tens of thousands, 10,000 miles away or 7,000 miles away, drop bombs on a very specific target. I'm pretty sure we did a movie about this. Wasn't that Top Gun 2, the Maverick one? And then land in the United States. That's pretty freaking epic. I thought that was the whole point. We dropped a mountain and we dropped the entirety of their infrastructure on top of themselves with, just scientists dying in there. And, it's sad for the people that worked there because I bet you they didn't think they were the bad guy. Okay, fine. Was that it? Minimal collateral damage? No. They were bragging. Are you seriously trying to tell me that while the negotiations are going on, where they're like, hey, we would like to not have a war, and we know that you can bomb us from Iowa or wherever the hell it was, you can fly out of the center part of the United States and drop bombs on us and never land and come back and then land back in your own country, and you can evade every air defense that we have. We're going to brag to you that we've got something that's going to make you bomb us some more because that's how badass we are. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Almost as dumb as talking about how we've got more oil than anyone needs. Was it out of Kansas? It's out of Kansas, apparently.
Zero. We don't need oil. We have all the oil we need for ourselves. It's one of the great assets that we have. We have more than double what anybody else in terms of oil production. We're at more than double any other country. So we don't need it, but we did it. It's almost, you could say we did it out of habit, which is not a good thing to do. But we did it because we have some good allies there. We have some great Middle Eastern countries there, Israel there. So we did it for a lot of reasons. But
this is not beating the allegations, as they say. The allegation is we went to war over Israel because Israel wanted us to go to war. That's the claim. A lot of people have made it. And then to be able to refute that claim, Trump said it wasn't about oil. We struck Iran almost out of habit, which is not a good thing. And we did it because we've got tremendous allies. We did it because we've got allies like Israel. Like, this is how you don't beat the allegations. When you say the thing that people are saying, hey, is it because of this? And you're like, it's not because of this. It wasn't because of this or this or this. It was because of the thing that you said the first time. That's not beating the allegation. And by the way, who's psyched about it? The wild, like, rabid Zionist crowd. The Mark Levin. The Lindsey Graham. He's the greatest president in the history of all peace and wartime presidents because he did what Israel wanted him to do. Like, it's like everyone looks at it and just goes like, hey, man, like, what the hell's going on here? I'm going to play you something that also freaks me out. Switch the word Israel. Here, this is the test. Okay, this is the old test I used to do too. It's called the mirror test. So some woman comes up at work and says something to you. I had this experience where my boss came up. FBI story. Lady walks up and says, Kyle, that's a really nice shirt. You should wear it more frequently. Do you know how I know that that's not appropriate in the work environment? Because if I walked up to a woman that I was the boss of, if I had a subordinate female, which I've had females that were in my employ, and I said, that's a really nice blouse. You should wear it more frequently. Am I about to get fired for sexual harassment, you think? Anyone? I'll just put the chat on the screen for a second. You walk up to a female employee who you think looks nice, and you say, hon, that's a really nice looking shirt, really brings out your eyes, or whatever other thing you want to say. You should wear that shirt more frequently. You should wear it more often. My response to my boss when she said it to me was, thanks, now I have to burn this shirt so my wife doesn't stab you. Because I just thought that was funny. Because I know it's inappropriate. I know you can't do that, right? Okay, in the same way, that mirror test can be applied. Here's what the mirror test looks like. The reason why I know that you're a bad person is because you're talking all kinds of bad about Uganda. Uganda is my favorite country that's not America. And Uganda shares a special place in my heart. Uganda is the place where my college roommate was born. And if Uganda is not safe, then America is not safe. And anti-Uganda feelings are anti-American feelings. Does that make any sense to you? Do you have any strong feelings about Uganda? Now put the word Israel in. You can't say that because your hatred for Israel is hatred for America. Right? That's how I know it's not right. You just put any other country in there and you go, why are you an American politician talking about something, a place that you're not from, that I'm not from, that you don't represent, and we have no vested interest in, per se? It's really strange for you to substitute any other country's name in there. How about Vietnam? You can add that in there. Yemen. It doesn't matter what country you put in. The only country that I've ever heard anyone say that hating them is a problem, and it's a problem because it's hating yourself. It's like the you disrespect Dre, you disrespect yourself thing, which is a silly thing to say because you can disrespect Dr. Dre. It's nothing to do with me or you or anyone else. Here's Ted Cruz doing sort of that thing, right? It doesn't make sense if you swap the word Israel for any other country. Try to do it as he's speaking.
There was one turning point event that J.D. Vance was at Ole Miss where a kid gets up and asks this wildly anti-Israel question. And what happened next was extraordinarily revealing. Spontaneously, a third of the students burst into applause.
Maybe it's because people don't like being told what they can't ask and what they can't say. And so children and young people and young students and teenagers and folks who like to needle the establishment and say, damn the man, they like to do things that are countercultural or contrarian. Do they not? That's an experience that I've had with younger people. You've had that experience with them too. You've probably been that person where someone's like, you can't do that. And you're like, yeah, watch me. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then what? What are you going to do? Nothing? Yeah, you can't talk about Israel. They're going to be like, I'm going to ask some Israel questions. A wildly anti-Israel question to an American senator who represents the state of Texas, America. And he was dramatically and deeply offended to the point where he has to make it part of his speech.
That was their immediate reaction to that question. A week later, Eric and Laura Trump are at another turning point event, this time at Auburn. Mm-hmm. An even more wildly anti-Israel question gets asked.
Anti-Israel. God, you can't do anti-Uganda questions
Full
are unacceptable.
Of false statements.
You cannot lie about Uganda.
And the reaction is identical. Instantaneously, a third of the students burst into applause.
Those people hate Uganda, and that is not acceptable.
And let me be clear, this is un-American. Not Berkeley or Yale.
Yeah.
This is Ole Miss and Auburn.
Right. Ole Miss and Auburn cannot hate. They're not allowed to dislike another country that is not their country, right?
These are a bunch of frat guys looking to get lucky on Saturday night.
Yeah.
But the problem is we live in a very polarized and tribalized society.
Right.
And I worry about the 19-year-old who's saying, oh, that's what our team believes.
Again, I'm going to go back to my example from yesterday. If people to assume that somebody looks at a person who happens to be Jewish and is obnoxious, like let's just do Mark Levin as an example because he's freaking obnoxious. When you look at him, he looks like he sounds, and he sounds like a pain in the ass. He sounds like the HOA president that's going to come and cite you for leaving your Christmas wreath on your door for too many days after Christmas. It's January the 7th. You have to take it down by Epiphany. It has to be down. You're going to have a $200 fine. I already told you last year. Like that guy. That's what Mark Levin sounds like to me. So I think he's a pain in the ass. And I would look at him and go, I don't like Mark Levin. I don't like the way he talks. I don't like the way he sounds. And it turns out if that's what Jewish people sound like, and there are some that do, you'd be like, yeah, you're meeting the stereotype of Jewish people that are obnoxious. You are an obnoxious person meeting Jewish stereotypes. And then some people go, yeah, I don't like that. Just like if you had neighbors who were black and they played really loud music at really awful hours. And you'd be like, guys, seriously, this is a nice neighborhood. You can't play at 2 a.m. every single night. You're meeting the black stereotype. There are things that people don't like that are stereotypically associated in a negative way with black culture. Please stop doing that thing. The minute you don't do it, they don't not like black people. They don't like the stereotype that is associated with people that are negative in the black culture. In the same way, if you act like the thing that people don't like, then they won't like it. But it turns out if you don't act like that, they don't care if you're Jewish. Some of you guys watch the Viva Frey podcast. I think by ethnic background, he's Jewish. I'm going to convert him too, by the way. I told him that already, so I'm not saying anything new here. He is the opposite of Mark Levin. He's sensible. He's rational. He's also an attorney. And he's Jewish, at least by ancestry. I don't think he's a practicing Jewish person. I got no problem with that man. None. Because it's not about Jews. It's about obnoxious people. It just turns out if you live up to an obnoxious stereotype, people will generalize you into that stereotype if you want to live that way. By the way, American Jewish people who don't want to be treated in the way that they're hearing this Jew hate, this hatred of Israel, right? Like all that stuff, act like the Mormons. When someone says something nasty about you, you just deal with it. People say nasty things about me. They say nasty things about you. They've called you misogynist. They've called you a fascist. They've called you a right-wing lunatic. Have they not? People have called you all kinds of things. You're misogynistic. You're xenophobic. It's like, don't care. Fine. You said things. That doesn't represent my existence. People say nasty things about Catholics. I grew up in Texas. Baptists are much more predominant here, like the Ted Cruz types. They are now saying wild things about Catholics in this country. Do I take personal offense at it and bristle every single time it comes up? No. This is something Ted Cruz endorsed the other day. This is coming from LifeSite News. Ted Cruz endorses article about traditional Catholics being parasites. That's kind of nasty language. I've seen that language in 1930s Germany, it turns out. So what happens when you call people Nazis? There was a meme that someone posted at me the other day. A really good meme. It said, they don't describe your behavior and say that you're acting like a Nazi. They call you, what do they say? They don't want to kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi because they want to kill you. That's the meme. They don't want to kill you because you are in fact a Nazi. They want to call you a Nazi so they can kill you. And I don't think it's that far, but let's call it socially. They want to injure you. They want to stop you. They want to silence you because of that. This is the Ted Cruz story. Let's get this thing up here on the screen real quick. Let me grab it. Sorry. Where is it? There it is. LifeSite News. Okay. Traditional Catholics are in the firing line in an article that Ted Cruz described as, quote, the best and most comprehensive explanation of what we're fighting for. This was AI slop that was posted online. It was posted on X. It was probably posted some other places. He said, read every word of this. It's the best and most comprehensive explanation of what we're fighting, and quotes a character called Insurrection Barbie, who sounds like is a disbarred attorney and maybe recovering felon. So be it. He said this on Sunday, and it was a long anti-Catholic post. I'm Catholic. I'm not offended. I don't care. Ted Cruz says dumb things. Fine. It's interesting that the Biden administration went after traditional Catholics. It's quite interesting to see people on the political right using the same language as the Biden administration while also going after Catholics. Do you know what Catholics and mostly traditional Catholics can tell you? And it's very, very specific. They are not Zionists. There is no teaching in the Catholic Church going back 2,000 years that says anything about whether or not Israel, and especially the current nation of Israel, has to have some sort of biblical existence or prophecy in order for the second coming to come in. It's not a thing. It's not taught in any Catholic church. That doesn't mean that you can't support people, but it's a secular question. The question is about your governments and whether or not you want to put your money towards another secular government. But there's no religious implication. Meanwhile, you've got this essay. It's 8,000 words. The author claims that the Republican Party was taken over by a small block of Catholics. Well, let me just tell you, in the United States, Catholics are the single biggest group of Christians writ large. And that's why they're important. That's why I was working with a group called Catholic Vote. They are far, far nicer to Donald Trump than I would be. But they're good people, and they mean well. And the founder of it is now the Trump administration ambassador to the Vatican, Brian Birch. He's a great guy. The funny thing is that there's been 2,000 years of thought that come along with being a Christian. So for some organization that pops up a couple hundred years ago or less to pop up and say things that they're going to say this is what must be believed in order to be a conservative, how strange. Their claim is that there's a small block of Catholics. They're undermining support for Christian Zionism, which, by the way, is not on the 20 core promises that Donald Trump made. There's nothing about Israel on there, by the way, or support of it. Chief influence is a world in which the Latin Mass hardliners, the author describes them as SSPX, holy shit people. This is exactly what I wrote about in February of 2023 when the Biden administration out of Richmond and the Biden FBI was signing off writ large on recruiting sources inside Catholic churches to go after white supremacists, because that's where they believed it was. They're making the same BS argument, except today they're calling you Nazi and it's Mark Levin doing it. And they're saying you're anti-Semitic. It's freaking wild. Let me play you another clip of this in just 1 second here. The author argues in this block that mainstream apologetic outlets like Catholic Answers create a sprawling ecosystem of Catholic and Orthodox content. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes are also attacked in the piece. They go along and they talk about some political theorists. They say there's a difference between everyday Catholics who don't know that this is happening and then the real thing, breaking off what is a radical traditionalist Catholic or an integral Catholic versus not. There's literally a piece. I'm going to put this up in the comments here. You guys can check it out. You should read the analysis of this because they are making the exact same arguments the FBI did. The FBI argued that traditionalist Catholics were a problem. And now Ted Cruz is saying the same thing. Why? This is the retard right. This is where we are. Now we're going to make these claims, which is funny, by the way. Retard right is good. I think we're ruled by retards. Here we go.
What we are calling the retard right, Podcastistan, what you name it, I think is inevitable. The race for clicks, the titillation of transgression.
The titillation of transgression. You can hear this man has a non-American accent, by the way. He may be an American citizen now, but he's clearly naturalized. Kind of interesting. I don't know where he comes from originally, but I went looking for his name, and all the websites that I found were all written. They were all Jewish, like, foundations. So whatever that is.
I want a free internet. I'm an American. I don't want hate speech laws.
But
it is inevitable that that'll happen, that there's going to be a contingency of people who are going to go down that rabbit hole for a variety of reasons. First of all, it's transgressive. And, transgression used to come from the left where they would burn the American flag or, you remember Piss Christ in the 80s or 90s. Today, the transgression comes from the right because the pieties are all on the left. Like you wanted to do something really transgressive, do a Piss Floyd at a museum, see if the NEA will fund it. There's also the pleasure of thinking that you're in the know, that, hey, here's what they don't want you to know. I know. You guys who watch Fox News, you don't know. And then there's the fact.
By the way, I just played you what Fox News says. Sean Hannity using religious language. Miracle.
That it just kind of absolves you of blame, right? Why is America in such a mess today? It's not our fault. It's their fault.
As long as there means people who have no principles and follow sort of like a blind cult, if they're category 1 people that say that they're going to follow personalities over principles, then yeah, I do agree that it's their fault. If you guys know, this podcast has no beef or no implication that some small group of people run America. But it's pretty clear that some people give it outsized influence, and I think that's wrong because I think they're not actually abiding by constitutional principles. For all the talk of democracy in this country, it's pretty funny that we have a pretty anti-democratic system, except in the ways that it actually undermines the system of the republic. Go figure. All right. We're going to do some more stuff. Let's see what else I got here. Oh, let's just do one more since we're talking Israel stuff. How about Lindsey Graham? Is he checking in? Some of you guys think Bibi Netanyahu may be dead. Benjamin Netanyahu was supposedly hit in an airstrike, according to some online questions. I don't know the answer to this. I don't think you do either. Lindsey Graham talked to him, so it should be fine. You know, Lindsey Graham said it. It must be true, right?
Everybody before Trump said you can't have a nuclear weapon, you can't do this. Now we're finally doing something about it. So we're going to stick with it. I talked to Bibi this morning. They're all in. This regime's going to clap. It's not if, it's when. And the day that happens, the world will be safer.
All right. Sean Hannity said it. It was about a nuclear weapon. Lindsey Graham, he's the MAGA, right? There he is. He's MAGA now. He said it was about a nuclear weapon. So the pivot has happened. We are doing the talk of nuclear weapons. That's what we're doing. The discussion is whether or not it's about nukes. So we've tried to kind of move the dial. Let's get this done real quick. Here's Donald Trump on a rambling discussion that apparently has been debunked by all major news sources. They've all asked the living presidents of the United States, and none of them have claimed they had this talk. But apparently Donald Trump is going to go on this sort of like meandering discussion about how they all wish they could have done something about the nuclear program, but he's the only one who did it. This sounds like classic Donald Trump just making up a story out of nothing. I don't know that he talked to anybody, because who could it have been? You guys try to figure it out. He says you guys would know. Who's he on friendly speaking terms with in former presidents? Maybe Clinton?
A lot of people at the time. You remember that, Peter? A lot of people. Had I not terminated, remember that, Stephen? You remember? They were all going, no, dude, this is not, that deal was a disaster. That was a road to a nuclear weapon. They would have had it 3 years ago, and it would have been used, I would say, 2 to 3 years ago, and it would have been used in the Middle East. And, by the way, after they finished that, they were coming over here. They never got a chance to do it.
I just want to ask you about something very interesting that you said twice today. That you talked to another former president about the Iran strikes.
I did.
Was it George W. Bush?
No.
Was it Bill Clinton?
I don't want to say. I don't want to say. Because
Barack Obama.
a member of a party, they have Trump derangement syndrome, but it's somebody that happens to like me, and I like that person who's a smart person. But that person said, I wish I did it. Okay? But I don't want to get into who. Okay. I don't want to get him.
Even if it was Bill Clinton, it's so long ago that it wouldn't have mattered. He's doing this sort of like unfalsifiable premise that if we hadn't done what we had done, then there would be this thing that could have happened. But because I did what I did, then it couldn't happen. And that's why we have to be at war right now, even though I solved the problem back then. None of that makes sense. The only thing that I do notice that's completely consistent is that if you like and you say nice things about Donald Trump, then you're a smart guy. It's a smart guy, you know, likes me. If you don't, then you're not a smart guy, no matter how genius you are. Remember, Elon Musk was an overrated billionaire. He wasn't that smart until he was nice to Trump, and then he was not. And so whenever you're nice to Trump, that's the smart thing. You can see why these people just kind of do this sycophantic move. How about this? Like, are we all over the place? Are we all over the map with what the question is? Here's how I know he was making things up in the middle of that press conference. It's very simple. I'll put the chat on the screen for a second. I know that Donald Trump made stuff up because in the Pentagon, there are tens of thousands of people working, and every single day, there are people working out every single contingencies, and they have op orders for every single possibility that could ever happen, and they've written it all up. Now, it's possible that someone didn't brief him on this, but his claim that nobody could have predicted that when attacked, Iran would go and try to implicate the Gulf state allies that that we supposedly had some sort of story on. Let me bring you the news story here, because this is actually, here you go. This is the New York Times reporting on this. Sucked into war, Gulf countries face limits on U.S. security guarantees. Being barraged by Iranian attacks, the question of the value of security lies in the United States. The nations in the Gulf have turned to Ukraine, Australia, and Italy for help, which is a really strange thing to do. And the report says it only took a few days after Iranian strikes before the Persian Gulf states, which have long relied on American security guarantees, decided they needed more help. Despite the presence of major U.S. bases, or maybe even because of them, Iran fired a barrage of missiles and drones at the Gulf. The costly American-made interceptors in those nations were in short supply globally, so Saudi Arabia reached out to Ukraine, a nation with experience fending off Russian drone models. The United Arab Emirates got help from France and Australia. Several other Gulf states asked Italy to provide anti-drone and anti-aircraft missile systems. The Gulf's authoritarian leaders, close to American allies, have questioned the value of their American security guarantees, and now that they're in the crosshairs of a regional war that their ally, the United States, started, the complaints are that they are getting limited value from this American protection. Nobody could have predicted this, apparently, except there's no chance they could not have predicted this. So what the hell is he saying here in the middle of this thing? You can say things that are not true, but this is clearly not true. So unless there's like an obvious purpose behind it, it just sounds like he's just talking. And he's just saying things like, yeah, I talked to this president. Let's say it was Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was president until what, the year 2000? What relevance could that have 26 years ago? Oh, because Iran was going to get a nuclear program for the last 30-something years and they've never been able to do it like that? Because, yeah, we do catch that one.
Thank you. You were talking about Iran a couple times today and what they did after Epic Fury began. You said they hit Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. Nobody expected that. We were shocked. Are you surprised that nobody briefed you ahead of time that that might be their retaliation?
Nobody, no. The greatest experts, nobody thought they were going to hit. They were, I wouldn't say friendly countries. They were like neutral. They lived with them for years. Peter, they were going to take over the Middle East. They were going to knock out Israel with their nuclear weapon. But after we knocked out their nuclear potential weapon, they started building missiles, thousands and thousands of missiles. And they were going to do it with missiles while they developed. These are sick people. While they developed nuclear, somehow they were going to start at a different site because that site was, you saw the site, the mountain. They were going to go into a certain area, which we know exactly where it is, and they were going to do that. And it's incredible what we've done. I tell you, the job we've done. Do you know, if I didn't tell
It always turns back to self-praise. It really does. It's hard to watch that. And then again, the regime does exactly this. Like it needs a cheerleader. And so they find that cheerleader over at Fox News. This is the lead story from today, Fox News, before we got started. Command collapse. The Iranian regime faces major setbacks after Israel confirms the death of its new de facto leader. Sounds like they killed some more people. Some guy whose name I can't pronounce. Ali Larijani is the secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council. They really like that word supreme. I wonder if it translates differently in something else because it sounds dumb to me. It's considered one of the most veteran and senior officials within the Iranian regime leadership. It was a close associate of Supreme Leader, again, that word, Ali Khamenei. During the most recent wave of protests in Iran, this Larijani guy employed violent enforcement measures and repression. Yeah, because they're the bad guys, right? They have to be the bad guys. Personally overseeing the massacre of Iranians protesting the regime. Again, all of that's great, and I know that's really important to not me. I don't know what that has to do with affordability in America. But here we are. After Khamenei was killed in the opening airstrikes 2 years ago, they consolidated the status. This guy became the de facto leader, this Larijani guy. He led combat efforts against Israel. It just always has to come up. Against Israel and countries across the region. Specifically Israel, in case you're wondering, but also other countries. He delivered a defiant message on state media after the U.S.-Israeli airstrikes killed his boss. So there you have that, right? Great. He was killed in a targeted Israeli airstrike on Tuesday, another blow to Tehran's leadership efforts. It's like, okay, so did we win? Are we winning? Is it all over? Have we done victory? I think that we have a question of that, and I think I've got a clip about the victory here. Make sure I've got it here. Talk to other presidents. Make sure I've got the right clip. How about Cuba? Let's do Cuba first. Because apparently Because apparently we're also going to take Cuba. We're not having enough war. Remember, Lindsey Graham told us Cuba was next. Now Donald Trump's saying it. You tell me what's going on here.
I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. That'd be good. That's a big honor.
Taking Cuba.
Taking Cuba in some form, yeah. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I could do anything I want with it. You want to know the truth?
Okay. So we can do anything we want. We'll take Cuba. We're going to just keep moving on. We don't need the oil. We're there because of nukes. We don't have any nukes. We took out the nuke program, but also because we could do it. It's like he's the greatest peacetime and wartime president in the history of peace or war or presidents, I guess. There you have it. You want to get on the bad side? On the bad side is if you actually have a discussion and say, hey, what the hell's going on here? And like, why are we doing this? And what's it going to result in domestically? It looks like this. Here's Tucker and Glenn Greenwald talking about something. Seems totally reasonable. This is how you find yourself excommunicated and potentially face criminal indictment from our totally not corrupt, totally not using the same words as the Biden administration, federal law enforcement.
Where do you think this goes politically? Like, what does the country look like? We've got midterms this fall. 2 years from then, we have a presidential election. Clearly, there's going to be a realignment. The neocons have intentionally blown up the Trump coalition. They hated it from day one because it was, quote, America first, which obviously precludes putting Israel first. So they wanted to destroy the coalition. They have. Where do things land, given those facts?
You're already seeing this major transformation actually well on its way, if not coming soon to its conclusion in the Democratic Party, where it's becoming almost untenable for candidates in the Democratic Party, including incumbents, to run, especially in primaries, if they're too supportive of Israel, if they accept AIPAC money. This transformation is close to complete. That is not going to be reversed. And what made the Israel lobby so powerful for so long was that it was more than anything else bipartisan, unfailingly bipartisan. It wasn't one party or the other. Netanyahu kind of destroyed that, but there was still a lot of pro-Israel support in the Democratic Party. That's gone. And I think if I were Israel and I were, Israel firster in the United States, primarily concerned with the standing of that country in the United States, the thing that would alarm me the most is that this is now happening on the right. I can't imagine a 2028 primary campaign in the Republican Party that does not prominently feature this question. And I also can't imagine that there's not going to be somebody like a major candidate who's not purposely occupying that lane of saying, we were told that we weren't going to have any more foreign wars or foreign attachments. One of the major problems is Israel. We don't hate Israel. We don't have anything against it. We just need to stop being responsible for funding it and fighting wars for it. And I think that's going to have a lot of appeal. So it's always going to take the DC establishment very long. I don't know if Susan Collins is like walking around. She promised she was going to only serve 2 terms. I think she's seeking her 7th. And somebody went up to her and said, what about all these dead people in Gaza that you paid for? And she kind of just stumbled into her car, very dazed because of her age. And she just uttered this cliche, I'm pro-Israel. And so you have this older establishment generation that's never going to change. It's programmed in their brain. But you see the trend so clearly, not just in the Democratic Party, but in the Republican Party, where this issue.
So that's the issue. The issue is the same thing that you heard Ted Cruz talk about, that young people are seeing something and maybe they're just looking at it and just going why do you keep saying that country, which is not our country? If you even said I'm pro-Mexico, it would be weird, even though they're our neighbor to the south. If you said I'm pro-Canada over and over again, Canada is our greatest ally. They're one of our best trading partners. We share a huge land border with them. We do all kinds of commerce with them. Canada is the most important ally strategically in the northern hemisphere. We need Canada here in North America. They're our favorite. We love Canada. We like to beat them in hockey, but we also just love to do trade with them, and they're the best. They fight the best wars with us. You'd still be dude, why do you keep talking about Canada? Where are you from? Why are you about this? New York Times is covering it today. The war in Iran exposes the right's widening rift over Israel. It's an ongoing topic. It's an ongoing discussion point. And of course, who do they have in there? But Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson. So those people are in big trouble because they're separating ways with someone who says you have to be part of it. You've got to be on the Mark Levin. You got to be on You got to be on the Lindsey Graham side. There's Donald Trump. He says, whoa, 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 whoa. The problem is there's no coherent statement about what the hell they're doing. If you said, hey, we went in there because Israel's our ally and we're going to freaking make sure that they stay alive. Like, you're like, I don't like it, but at least it's a position. If you went in there and said they can't have nukes, then you tell us you got rid of the nukes. Then we could go, okay, great, mission accomplished. You go in there and say we want to make sure that they don't have short-range ballistic capabilities because we have a bunch of allies in the Middle East and we don't want to drive up Gulf prices. And by the way, we said affordability was really important. And even though we make enough oil and we don't need the oil, we need to make sure that the rest of the world has access to that oil, blah, 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 blah. Fine, now you've made a geopolitical argument. We're going to get rid of ballistic missiles. The problem is that there's actual no milestone of what's victorious. And so that was that comment about the Will Chamberlain, about the MAGA influencer circle. This is the Bongino. This is the Graham Allen. This is the Sean Hannity. They all have the same position. Whatever Donald Trump says is fine. It's the greatest. We have to go with it. We have to do whatever they say. And we don't know what the answer is. And by the way, it sounds like Donald Trump doesn't even have the answer. And here's the example of that. This was a bizarre statement that we've done everything we need to win. Peter Doocy restates it to him and says, sir, sounds like you've done everything you want to do. Did you win? Why don't we leave? And he's like, yeah, because we're not going to. And it makes you ask this simple question that so many people are asking. Is this man even in charge? Does he have the ability to? Is there a coherent strategy that is being prosecuted, or are we at the mercy of someone else? And when you keep mentioning another country, it at least gives them credibility to keep asking that question. I don't think the United States does the bidding of Israel, for whatever it's worth, guys. I just don't. I think it's far more complex than that. But that doesn't mean that like a lot of like multinational people with a ton of money are not pulling the strings in the United States government. And that's not the same thing as saying that we are doing the bidding of another country. But I do think that our politicians serve masters that are bigger than us, who have much deeper pocketbooks than like any of you do. That makes perfect sense to me, because how the hell did they get there without it? So that's a different animal. And when you answer questions with this mealy-mouthed nonsense where you say, like, I think we've won and maybe we'll take Cuba. Why? What the hell are you talking about? Dude, I saw your 20 promises. We were going to be the president of peace. Now you're going to go fight a war with Cuba? Or you're going to go conquer it because they're having a bad day and their electrical grid is out? And their electrical grid is out because you started a conflict somewhere else? All of that is really weird. Here's this answer. You guys tell me how you feel about it. Feel free to put a comment on it. These are not my words. These are Donald Trump's, and Peter Doocy asking a reasonable follow-up.
A lot of people at the time. You remember that, Peter? A lot of people. Had I not terminated, remember that, Stephen? You remember? They were all going, no, dude, this is not, that deal was a disaster. That was a road to a nuclear weapon. They would have had it 3 years ago, and it would have been used, I would say, 2 to 3 years ago. And it would have been used in the Middle East. And by the way, after they finished that, they were coming over here. They never got a chance to do it.
I just want to ask you about something very interesting that you said twice today. That you talked to another former president. Yeah. This war up this week. Got the missiles, got the first 2 rounds of leadership, Air Force gone, Navy gone. Can we wrap this war up this week?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Will we?
I don't think so, but it'll be soon. Won't be long. And we're going to have a much safer world when it's wrapped up. It'll be wrapped up soon. We're going to have a much safer world. I had an obligation to do this. I didn't want to, I call it an excursion. I didn't want to make this journey. We had the highest stock market in history. We had low gas prices. Everything was good. And I know exactly, I know what, you're going to do it. And people are going to raise the price of oil. And that's good. But I know that. But that's a very small thing compared to allowing them to have. You want to see a stock market go down? Start letting them hit you with nukes, okay? I think, I said it this morning, I think it's a very small price to pay. And frankly, I thought it was going to go down much more, if you want to know the truth. I assumed that it was going to go down much more, only because people don't understand to a large, it's a big chess game. At a very high level. It's a very high level chess, the highest. And I'm dealing with very smart players. These are smart people. They don't get there. When you deal with some of these people, you're dealing with high level intellect, very high IQ people. These are not Jasmine Crockett and her group. These are smart people. These are really smart people, and violent people, and vicious people, and some very nice people. And some are very nice but violent. They turn violent. But you know what?
Has he just cracked, guys? I mean, I know that Trump always does this rambling crap where he just says nonsense, but like, dealing with the highest level people. They're the high IQ people and they're the violent people, but some of them are very nice. So it's just awful. Yeah, and everyone said gas prices were going to go up, but then they were going to be up, and then they were going to be down, and I think they're going to go down more, but they could have been up higher, and then it's just nonsense. Just not like we've accomplished all the goals that we wanted to. I don't think we're going to get out this week, but it'll probably be some other time, pretty soon. I'm just saying. I get it. It's probably a tough job. What a mess. What a freaking mess. You can't blame people looking at it from the outside going, hey, man, what are we doing here? Like, you don't get to blame people for seeing that you're saying things that are illogical. Anybody that's consuming that and is like, I'm loyal to Donald Trump, whatever he says. Are you calling him infallible? Because he's most clearly not. He is not infallible. He's made terrible decisions. Do you know how I know? Because he put Kash Patel in, even though that was partly my fault. He put Kash Patel in. He's put Pam Bondi in at DOJ. He put Bill Barr in at DOJ. He put Chris Wray in at DOJ, right? At FBI director. He makes terrible decisions on a regular basis. He had to remove multiple AGs. He's not infallible. He has terrible hiring decisions on a regular basis. They're like 50-50 tops. He put Kristi Noem over at DHS, and she turned around and spent $250 million on an image campaign because she thought she was going to run for president. And she thought that that's what people needed, a boomer thirst trap or whatever the heck it is. Very nice people, the nicest people, but also very violent people. High IQ, the highest level of chess. Chess at the highest level with the smartest of people who also don't like me, but they do like me when they do like me. And so that makes me feel like we're dealing with, let me tell you something, very difficult here. Violent people who are also nice sometimes. Just what the shit, dude? What a freaking mess. That's your president. It's better than Joe Biden's rambling because he would just not know where he was. So I think Donald Trump knows what room he's in. It seems pretty clear that he knows what the topic is, but he's just a freaking disaster. With that statement right alone, we've achieved all of the things we've wanted, and yet we can't end the war because I'm not in charge of it, is what it sounds like to me. But I don't know who's in charge, and neither do you, for all of you that think you do. It's just bad. It's just all bad. It's bad for America because, like, we'd like something better. We really would. All right. Let's hit a final little thing here, which I think is fun. This final thing is transparency. Speaking of bad hiring decisions, here's one. Again, I take the blame where I belong, but this just came out just as we were getting ready to go live here. This was happening a few seconds before we went live. At this FBI, we've opened the books and we've produced more documents for the American people than ever before. Coming from FBI Director Kash Patel, we've given over 50,000 pages of documents to Congress in just 1 year. That's a 350% increase over the entire tenures of the previous two directors combined. Yeah, the FBI doesn't share data, and you shared BS. Who cares? These are documents on cases and investigations and public trust abuses sought by the public for years, Arctic frost, congressional baseball shooting, Russiagate, and many more. They're not hidden anymore. We promise transparency. We're delivering it 24/7, and we're not slowing down. I'm going to tell you, this is documented bull. Oh, first tweet, Kyle Seraphin. Let me show you. You can't even comply with a simple FOIA. The federal law says that it takes 30 days for the government to give you what you need. Folks, we filed a FOIA. This is my FOIA document right here. I'm in the middle of a lawsuit right now because pursuant to the court's case, we filed a FOIA December 15th of 2025. We asked for information in November. In November, on the 12th of 2025, me and my attorney requested, me from Seraphin Media, that's all you guys watching are helping this happen. We requested all of the comms from official devices about personal matters that Kash Patel was involved in and going along with some of his other lawsuits and his friends at Jesse Banal's law firm and so on. That's what we asked for. They have 30 days to comply. They did not. After 33 days, we filed a lawsuit, December 15th of 2025, and we've sued them. We've sued them over the things they're supposed to do. The FBI's response is as follows. In response to the plaintiff's FOIA request, the FBI has begun to search its responsive records, but that search remains ongoing, and the FBI does not yet have an estimate for when it will be complete. This is in part because the FBI search may necessitate performing targeted searches of FBI field offices coordinated with such offices. It may take time. They are telling you that they are not going to agree or they are not going to comply with federal law as they are required to, because it takes time and it's hard. Because the search remains ongoing, we don't have an estimate on the number of documents that might be responsive to the plaintiff's request at this time. Additionally, likewise, they don't have an anticipated date for release. So even though the law says you have 30 days to produce what you're required to do, they don't have that 30 days. We're now 4 months deep, and they don't know when the answer will be. because they can't do any of the things for transparency. And this is a simple request of what has the FBI director tweeted? What has he posted? What has he done on all of his official comms? And they are arguing back and forth. They wanted me to sign a document because one of the things we asked was, hey, are there any things that have Kyle Seraphin's name that came from Kash Patel, which is, by the way, not necessary for his job. They said the FBI does not anticipate doing a special motion, which is similar to Open America versus Watergate special prosecution, some 1979 precedent for a motion for stay. They believe it's too soon to say whether they're going to have to do a Vaughn index for this case. The parties believe it's too soon on whether there should be a summary judgment. We're going to work together, and they're going to update us every 60 days going forward on whether or not they're going to be able to comply with something that they were meant to comply with 120 days ago. Because there is no transparency on this stuff. And then, lest you guys think otherwise, the current podcasting slot master and former deputy director, Dan Bongino, is mad because Miranda Devine is writing stories about them. Rather than these guys actually doing the job, they're out there doing PR and like claiming they did stuff they didn't do. Another ridiculous snip is from Miranda Devine. You want to talk about a divide on the right? How about people that stayed with principles? Miranda Devine is one of them, it turns out. She's pointing out things that are problematic. And you've got Dan Bongino out there making attacks. Miranda's Comey and Ray era FBI buddies. She's talking about people that have principles. You think Miranda Devine, the person who was like out there exposing Chris Wray left and right for the things that he was doing, who was an ally to me and the guys that were whistleblowing against that FBI, she's the problem now? If the problem is always people that speak the truth about the agency that you used to be a part of, and so now your legacy is entitled to it, like, you're the problem. And for whatever it's worth, this is the piece that happened right there. This is what it was. Miranda Devine, FBI Director Kash Patel's flamboyant lifestyle hits the agency morale while terror attacks strike the United States. And this is what we should be focusing on. Yesterday, one of the reporters from ProPublica posted that Kash Patel is running around in custom FBI-style shoes that have the number 9 on it, the Punisher logo on the back of it, and they say fidelity, bravery, and integrity, which is what the FBI claims is their motto. He's rolling around in UFC-branded, FBI-branded shoes because he's a freaking 19-year-old virgin trapped in a 46-year-old cross-eyed man's body. And his lifestyle, which is ridiculous, is actually probably causing real problems. Because all it's proving is you cannot make the FBI do pre-crime. And all these terrorism things that are going on out there. He's signing autographed pictures of himself because he's a clown show. But he's the problem. Here's the problem right there. It's Miranda Devine. She's the problem. It's not the flamboyant lifestyle of this doofus influencer guy who's just 100% pro-loyalty. He's in camp number 1. Whatever Donald Trump says is great. That's why you get unlimited knob slobbery. She's pointing out something that's pretty clear. Operation Epic Fury began. Director Kash Patel said he was putting the Bureau's counterterrorism and intelligence resource teams on high alert for threats to the homeland. By the way, that didn't actually really go down that much. They didn't work 24/7. Give me a break. I mean, they work, but not 24/7. That's not a real thing. And they can't stop you. You can't stop actual terrorism because these people make autonomous decisions. You can't monitor everybody, nor should you be able to. While the military handles force protection overseas, the FBI remains at the forefront of deterring attacks at home, he said, and then there were 2 attacks in one single day. Because they're completely random. One of those attacks, though, you'd think they would be able to keep track of. That was someone that the FBI arrested in 2016, they convicted, and they had sentenced in 2017, and then in 2026, he was able to go out and kill someone for the same reasons he wanted to do previously. Can we just be honest about that? The FBI's failure is so bad that people who have previously been caught by the FBI for doing terrorist stuff that they groomed them into could not even be monitored after the fact. Forget new problems. You literally had someone who was serving 11 years, let out early, and then that guy went and finished the job that he started 10, 12 years ago. 10 years ago, I guess. Is there more argument for keeping this $11 billion a year agency open? Between Bongino trying to defend it from the podcast seat because he couldn't do it from the seat of the deputy director, from Kash Patel wearing custom freaking UFC shoes, which is absolutely retarded and pathetic, and the fact that you have a former arrested, convicted, like terrorist subject released into the public and you weren't even paying attention to that. And so that guy got away and killed an American citizen. Like, it happens. It's dangerous. The world is dangerous. All you're proving, though, is you can't even keep track of the people that you previously arrested that were doing things that were dangerous. How on earth are you going to find new sleeper cells or terrorists unless you set them up, which is what they do, which is how they set that guy up last time. He just got smarter when he was in prison, decided not to make any friends that were FBI employees or FBI undercovers. Read this story here. I'm going to put it in the thing so you can read Miranda Devine's story. I'll put all these stories up there. The last one that's kind of funny, and this is terrible. There was a story in the New York Times. You know, you're getting in a bad spot when you're getting hit from the left and from the right. And Miranda Devine does actually play from the right, the real right, not the nonsense. Jackie Two Mags McGuire wrote an editorial for the New York Times entitled, "I was an FBI agent for 25 years. Kash Patel's playing a dangerous game." Jackie Two Mags McGuire is the woman that carries two mags, one for her job, one for shooting a dog on the streets of Philadelphia. You guys remember Jackie Two Mags? She was the special agent in charge of the Philadelphia field office. She shot a pit bull on the street in the middle of a busy urban area because she couldn't control her own dog or whatever the heck that story was. She was investigated, and because she was a senior executive, she wasn't ever accused of doing a bad shoot. And then she ended up being at the training division where she could actually train and be in charge of training for all people in the FBI, because that's what we're dealing with right now. The left and the right are both hitting. How on earth does that happen? And Susie Wiles may leave before Kash Patel does. And that's how you know that we're dealing with unserious times. That's the program for today. There's a lot of stuff in there. If you guys are following up and you want to read, I think the case is pretty bad that we're dealing with people that all they need to do is track back to the simple things they said. Again, you wanted the metric for success. It's the thing that got you elected. At any moment, you could pivot away. You can end the Iran thing tomorrow. Apparently, you already told Peter Doocy it's going to end soon, and you've already accomplished all the wins. So how about that? How about get focused back on the things that make some sense? Here they are. They're on the screen. The Trump administration needs to refer to it since they took it off the web. We kept it here. It'll stay on my desktop. I'll continue talking about it. Shouldn't be that hard. Unite the country by bringing new and record levels of success. That would be a winner. Everybody would feel great about that. Nobody will be mad at you for doing success. They will be mad at you for sending children to go to war. We've lost 13 Americans so far in this conflict that didn't need to happen. Sorry. It's ugly. All right. Like the show if you're watching. We appreciate that. Should we do something fun? How about we just find something that we all do? Every freaking one of you guys does this. Admit it. You find words that you don't know how to spell and you sound them out in your head. I found this the other day and it made me think of my friend Ryan Matta, who I don't agree with him on everything, but I do think is funny. And he 100% agreed that this was him, but it's also me. It's also you. It's also my wife. We all do this funny thing where we have a difficult time with certain words. And so we say them and then we tell ourselves that we're a dumbass. You guys know you do this.
Guarantee, dumbass. Restaurant, dumbass. Separate, dumbass. Wednesday, calendar, February, dumbass. Maintenance, dumbass. Conscience, TIO, just say thoughtful, dumbass. Environment, AC knowledge, privilege, Geoffrey, dumbass. Tangue, dumbass.
Just take a break. Do people not know how to spell the word tongue? Anyway, all right. All of you have a word like that. Feel free to put it in the comments. I appreciate all you guys. Let's do this again tomorrow. This could be a thing. We could just show up in the mornings at 0930 and we could do the Kyle Seraphin Show podcast. Thanks for joining us. If you guys are here, share it with a friend. God bless you. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.